Ruthless invaders, a defenseless planet. Battle beyond the stars. A lone youth escapes on a last-ditch mission that begins at the edge of the universe. The story of a boy who finds more than he expected.
Make them burn.
And all he can handle.
Does your species have kissing?
Oh, yes. We have that. Try one. That's a hot dog. It comes from Earth. Do you like it?
There's no dog in this. Soybean meal, niacin, dextrose, and sodium nitrate flavoring. That's what we call meat back home.
Battle beyond the stars. Starring Richard Thomas, George Purpard, Robert Vaughan, John Saxon, a battle beyond time, beyond space.
They set fire!
That ends in a desperate gamble.
They'll be able to board us.
It won't make any difference.
Get that hatch open! No!
Battle beyond the stars.
The following is a paid advertisement. Really? A paid advertisement? Wait, the B-Movie Cast got paid? Yes, the following is a paid advertisement. This episode of the B-Movie Cast is brought to you by the estate planning services of Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law. Remember, when the zombie apocalypse comes, things will move pretty fast.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make any arrangements.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't give them time to make funeral arrangements. The bodies must be carried to the street and burned. They must be burned immediately. Soak them with gasoline and burn them. The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts that a funeral service will give. They're just dead flesh and dangerous.
So don't leave your estate planning needs until the last minute, because you don't know when that last minute could come. Call Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, at 859-351-2294. That's 859-351-2294. Remember, when you go, you don't want people saying,
"Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up."
Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, is licensed for practice in the state of Kentucky. Consult your local attorney for matters outside of the state of Kentucky.
Command mark. The time will be running at X-20 seconds. Mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire.
Spawned by the continuing decline and fall of society as we know it, and created on the second-floor spare-bedroom studio in the Piedmont of South Carolina. Podcasting on a shoestring budget and changing the world one freak at a time. It's the B-Movie Cast with your host, Vince Rotolo.
From coast to coast and worldwide via the internet, this is the B-Movie Cast, the podcast of unusual film and television.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the B-Movie Clubhouse for episode 479 of the B-Movie Cast. Before I go any farther, I want to get our contact information out of the way. We love hearing from all of you. So we have a feedback segment devoted to your comments and suggestions, and this is how you can contact us. Option 1, pick up your phone and dial 888-936-0808. This is a toll-free number and a very easy way to leave a voice message. Option 2, you can make your own MP3 file and send it into bmoviecast@gmail.com. Or use your smartphone voice software and record a call, then just send that in as an attachment instead. Or option 3, if you're not into talking, you can just shoot us an email to bmoviecast@gmail.com. Our website is bmoviecast.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast. It's free, and there you can join us on the Facebook bmoviecast fan page and letterbox. Also, you can play the contest by sending in your answer by email to bmoviecast@gmail.com with contest in the subject line. And check out the links while you're there, or buy a t-shirt. I currently have smalls to 4X's. If you want to help us financially, there's a donation box you can click on as a supporter on the Lugosi, Karloff, Agar, and the infamous Xanadu level through PayPal. Also, the easiest way to donate is to click on the Amazon bar on the right side of our homepage. This Amazon link will take you to Amazon.com to make your purchase. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can still log into your personal accounts when you get there. It's completely private, so think about us before you buy online. So now, through the miracle of modern technology and thousands of miles of wires, server farms, PCs, Macs, the Internet, and duct tape, we have our co-host from Lexington, Kentucky, author, editor, screenwriter, film producer, Nick Brown. He has a new website. It is authornickbrown.com. That's AUTHORNICBROWN.com. He is the author of the Werewolf for Hire book series, starting with Blood Curse. He's also selling a book in collaboration with his wife, Fiona, the B-Movie Cookbook. All of these are available on Amazon. He's produced 2 movies, Wretch and Loss Prevention. Both can be ordered on Blu-rays or DVDs through Amazon. He is also the producer of a 3rd film, the soon-to-be-released Fall of Usher. Before we start, I'd like to introduce you to Allan Holzman, our super special guest host. He's an editor and director who got to start with Roger Corman's New World Pictures in the 1970s. He was the editor of such films as Crazy Mama, Candy Straight Nurses, and, of course, New World Pictures' biggest production, Battle Beyond the Stars. Allan continues to work in film and has won a Peabody and 2 Emmys for Survivor of the Holocaust for Steven Spielberg. Now he primarily focuses on documentaries. His feature documentaries, Old Man River and Sounds of Memphis, earned a combined 8 Best Documentary Film Awards. Hopefully you've all had a chance to watch his AFI Life Achievement Award, a tribute to James Cagney, that Nick posted on the B-Movie Cast fan site on Facebook. It's a beautiful piece. You got to watch it. And he's also written a book about his experience with Battle Beyond the Stars called Celluloid Wars, Battle Beyond the Stars, which is due to be released soon. Sorry, guys. Just a little side note here. I'm getting my kitchen remodeled, and they're restaining all the cabinets, and my house has been filled with fumes for about 2 weeks now. And I'm slowly losing my voice.
So does that mean you're more high than normal when you're doing the podcast, Mary?
Yeah, and stupider than normal. Yeah, I think I've lost some brain cells along the way.
We don't call it stupid, Mary. We call it okay, we call it stupid. But
something impaired.
But we don't call you stupid. So
okay, I'll just call myself stupid and let everybody call me something else. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay.
So
today's movie is a space opera, and it's a Nick pick. It's called Battle Beyond the Stars from 1980 by Roger Corman. And by the way, it has been edited by today's guest host, Allan Holzman. The film's a futuristic remake of Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, 1954, and its Hollywood remake, The Magnificent Seven, from 1960. Just substitute spaceships for horses, aliens for samurai, and laser pistols for swords. It's the tale of a pacifist planet under threat from an evil despot who wants to turn their planet into a sun. Now, who doesn't want to watch a movie with bizarre androids, telepathic alien clones, reptilian slavers, Valkyrie, and a cowboy? I mean, it's just fun. And you have to watch it just to see what Nick calls Nell, the spaceship. He calls it the boob saddle spaceship. And it's a trip. What?
You know, Mary, I was going to manage to go this entire podcast without saying the word boobs.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing us to that level.
You're welcome.
So, and let's take a moment and welcome Allan. Welcome to the show.
Yes. Welcome,
Thanks.
Allan.
Who can follow that? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, if we can get our humor out of the bathroom at the high school, then we'll try and have a decent show.
We always try.
But hey, so Mary, had you ever seen today's movie before, by the way?
No. And honestly, when I saw that spaceship, I wondered, I was going to hit you, but, you know, you're too far away.
Actually, Jim Cameron is the one who designed it.
I know. I enjoyed it after the shock of it wore off, but...
The shock of it.
Yeah.
Okay. But one thing you missed in the introduction is that Battle Beyond the Stars is the first Alien ripoff. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And our competition was the first sequel to Star Wars, so we lost that battle, and we had to get out by the end of with Empire, which came out in June or May, and we came out in August just to make it by the end of the summer, so we could still get the kids.
Ooh.
So that was a big challenge.
Well, and as being one of those kids back in 1980, because I was 10 years old at the time,
you were the target?
I was your target audience, I think.
You were the target, and we got you.
You got me, and actually it's funny, though, because I did not see Battle Beyond the Stars in the theaters. I remember it came to town, and I missed it, but...
Well, Roger's whole strategy was to make 300 prints and tour them. So the tour was for 2 weeks in each city with a possible extension to 3, which I'm sure Battle had. And then it had to, so anyone who was in the habit of seeing the double features or the drive-ins or the theaters that showed Roger's films knew they had to see it right away.
See, and that was it, and I didn't know. I figured it would be like Empire Strikes Back, and it would be around forever. Because at 10 years old, I'll be honest, there was zero differentiation in my mind between Empire Strikes Back and Battle Beyond the Stars.
Mine too.
Ooh, space movies.
That's what I had to be. We can beat Empire. That was my attitude.
Well, and I will say this, the Star Wars movies are what they are. You know, they kind of set the genre up for pretty much everything after 1977. But I have to say that, Battle Beyond the Stars has held up. And I know when I was a kid, I watched it repeatedly. It would come on, I remember it came on ABC or NBC, I can't remember which, but it came on one of the networks, and I got to watch it when it aired on TV, and I was actually having a discussion with one of my friends who's my age, Eric. You know Eric, Mary.
Yes.
And he was saying that he wasn't able to stay up to watch it. And so he was really, really upset. And so 10-year-old Eric was jealous of me, even though we didn't know each other at the time. But that's beside the point.
Wow.
But no, and I think Battle Beyond the Stars, it was one of those movies that also made a lot of the rounds of cable television. And I couldn't tell you how many times I saw it on cable, over the course of the 80s. But.
Okay. Well, see, I was 26 at that time, and we had just moved to Alabama, Lower Alabama, and I think there's one theater in that town. And
it was busy showing Deliverance on a loop, right?
That kind of thing, yeah. It might not have even shown down there, I don't know. It was sad. Okay, but I just dated myself. Never mind.
I was going to say, you didn't just date yourself, Mary. You way dated yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was 33 at the time, so how's that? And
Good, that makes me feel better.
I really wanted to do. I was determined to have a good movie, and I was going to do anything that it took, and that's why I kept a journal, and I wrote every night at midnight on a typewriter of what happened that day and how I could fix things tomorrow, which of course went wrong as soon as I arrived at work. Yeah, and then it became really funny. So I really was motivated to keep writing, and so much of it was, you can't believe what happened today.
Well, and that journal is what has become Celluloid Wars, the lessons you learned from making Battle Beyond the Stars, right?
Yes. Well, it's more of an entertainment piece, really. It's really crazy. It's a delightful read, I think, because of Roger Corman, and it's about our relationship. Because but Roger was my most common uttered phrase, and he was always very strict on the limits, and that became the source of creativity, because the harder I worked, the more he liked the film. So, no one stops you from staying up all night. So, I did.
And I was going to say, Roger Corman definitely wouldn't stop you from staying up all night unless you were hourly.
There's nothing for Roger as hourly. In fact, as soon as we got the first cut completed, which had to be 4 days after the last shot was taken, he took the water bottle out of the editing room, the water fountain, not fountain, the sport, the gallon, the 5 gallon. Wow. And so I had to write him a budget on how it was not practical, because we had to walk over to the main stage to get water, and that took up too much time. So he brought it back.
Wow!
Wow! I love that.
Mm-hmm. So when's the book coming out? Do you have any
October.
idea? October, cool.
Yeah, it's been delayed because there's so many graphics in it, and also I got the opportunity to add interviews with the Skotek brothers, who did the special effects, and with Dorinda Wood, who designed the costumes. Roger gave her the weekend to design all the costumes to see if she could get the job, and she did it.
And then he kept those designs?
No, she has them, and they're in the book now.
No, I mean, he kept... He didn't make her redo them. He just kept what she had come up with.
They were inspired. The very designs she did that weekend are the ones that are in the movie, and the designs that lasted. There actually wasn't enough time to redo them. She only had a few weeks to get them to make them before the film started.
Oh, jeez.
But she had worked in theater, so she was used to, she was able to use the theater costume at LATTC, at Los Angeles Theater Company, and the people that she worked with there, so they were able to adjust everything.
Oh, that's too stressful for me.
I don't think you would like working on a Roger Corman film, Mary. It's very fast paced, and
it's funny though that everyone who did liked it. It's like you got to enjoy pain. It became part of the process. It's more pain than the other. But we were young enough to enjoy pain.
That's true. True.
You couldn't make movies in those days unless someone was paying a huge amount of money for it, because it was all on film, and it was a privilege to be on a movie, and young people could work for Corman. And I had 2 rounds with him. I had one with Candy Strutton versus Crazy Mama when I was a student at AFI. And then when I asked him to direct after that, I said, "Can I direct?" And he said, "Thank you very much. I'll see you later," because I was a pretty extreme stutterer then. And, I couldn't say the word direct. So I watched him walk away. And then I became an action editor and then tried to produce my own movie because no one would hire a stuttering director. And then I got really ripped off, and I wrote a book about my life and tried to figure out why I stuttered and all that stuff. And once I did it, it really didn't affect the stuttering. And I had a construction job, and I wrote, and that ended, and I had to come back to film, and I wanted to cut a good movie. Because as a stutterer, I never really got good movies. I got the movies that people didn't want to do, and I really enjoyed doing it because I would have control over the creative part because the directors usually left after they shot it. So I sacrificed creativity for lack of good movies. But then I really wanted to have a good movie, so I really wanted to cut Hammett. And I knew Rudy Fair, who was the head of post-production at Zoetrope, and wanted, and he, because I was editing for Fred Weintraub at Warner Brothers, and that's how I knew Rudy, because he was head of production, post-production at Warner Brothers before going to Francis's company. So, and I wrote Roger a letter asking him to recommend me, and he called and he said, you know, I haven't talked to Francis in a while, and I feel awkward calling him, but you want to cut Battle Beyond the Stars? It's my biggest movie ever. And I said yes, and that's it.
And a star is
born. Him up from 600 to 650 in a week, 7 days a week, or 6. But it became 7 without warning. That was the deal I made.
Wow.
And now let me ask: when you were editing this film, you were doing this, you were cutting dailies together too, right?
Absolutely. It was a full day of work editing, and then I would eat and then write. And I roller skated to work, so I got my exercise then.
You do like pain.
I skate to work. I can't believe I skated home at night in traffic and all that stuff. It's crazy. But no, I was too cool to wear a light. So.
Hey, you were
so
33.
It was Battle Beyond the Traffic also. So.
Oh,
come on, Mary. Hey, on that note, why don't we pause for a second and do the contest, Mary?
That sounds good.
Yeah, now, let's see. The last film we did, what was it? It was Empire of the Ants was the answer.
Yes.
And so, Alan, just in case you're not familiar, on the contest page of the B-Movie-Cast site, we post a photo from a movie. And the contest, basically, you enter by identifying the correct movie and the year it was released.
Oh, cool.
And by the way, we do have a tribute to you with our next contest, and that will be the only hint that the listeners get. So,
can I guess?
You can guess, and let me tell you, the prizes are amazing. One of our listeners won a spork.
Another one's getting a car soon. It's a 2-inch car, but it's a car.
Hey, I'd been promising listeners that they would win a car from the B-Movie Cast, so Mary's got a Hot Wheel that she's going to give away at some point.
Well, somebody donated that one, too. So.
Okay. So, and now let's go through what our prizes are first, Mary, and then, because we've got some special ones this week's contest.
Yes. Before I start, I want everybody to go to the B-Movie Cast fan page, because I posted a photo on it, because Pete Stima was going crazy and wanted to know how we picked our contest winners. So go online and you can see our high-tech bucket of ping pong balls. So our first movie today has been donated by Patrick Kelly. It's the Director's Cut Blu-ray from 1998 called Dark City. Pat says this film combines elements of film noir and science fiction to create a horrific but engrossing nightmare of a movie. It stars Kiefer Sutherland, Jennifer Connelly, and William Hurt. And the winner is Philip Pine. So congratulations,
all right,
Philip. Okay, he got Dark City. And our second movie prize has also been donated by Patrick Kelly. It's the DVD In Like Flint from 1967. Flint is again called out of retirement when his old boss finds that he seems to have missed 3 minutes while golfing with the president. Flint finds that the president has been replaced by an actor. Flint finds that a group of women have banded together to take over the world through subliminal brainwashing in beauty salons that they own. And the winner is Paul Ruby. So
all right, Paul. And
Paul.
Okay, I got to say for a minute, I absolutely love the Flint movies.
Oh.
What? James Coburn is brilliant in them. Mary, have you ever watched one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then go ahead and make the noise. Usually you make that noise without having seen the movie.
I think we actually saw one of these when we were in Alabama. And walked out on it. I'm not sure, though, because it's been so many years ago that I have no brain left.
Well, you could watch it again and see if you still make the ooh noise.
That's true. It's sitting downstairs.
And now bear in mind, these movies are definitely a product of their time.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, if you ever watch the Austin Powers movies with Mike Myers,
I can't
those
handle
films
those either.
Well, everybody says those are spoofs of James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they're more spoofs of the Matt Helm movies with Dean Martin and the Flint movies with James Coburn.
Okay.
So, just give it, because it's much more of the tongue-in-cheek attitude of it.
Yeah.
But,
well, Vince was a big James Bond fan, so that might be why it bothered him to watch those. But and we have a third movie prize. Are you going to announce it, Nick?
no, you were going to announce.
Oh.
Is this my movie?
This is your movie.
Oh, okay. So this week, our third movie, and this is in honor of having Allan on and doing a Roger Corman classic film. Now, I would love to give away one of the films that Allan has worked on, but I'm not going to, because
he's keeping.
I have an extra copy of Death Sport,
Ah.
and. By the way, you have to reach a certain point in life when you look down and realize that you own not one, but 2 copies of Death Sport, which is Roger Corman's. It was kind of a sequel to Death Race 2000, kind of a play on Star Wars a little bit, and it was also just a whole lot of fun to watch, and it's one of my guilty pleasure movies. And mostly it's a guilty pleasure because I love the fact that apparently David Carradine and Claudia Jennings spent most of the movie doing cocaine and beating up the director. So, I mean, what more could you ask for?
Wow.
So I have a DVD copy of that, which actually lists as a special feature that it has a menu. So this is the quality of the DVD, too. So get ready to be spoiled, listeners.
Okay, and the lucky winner is Dax Bradley.
Oh, if Dax doesn't already own this, I will be very surprised, but okay.
Okay, that's it for this week's contest prizes. Starting on the next cast, which is going to be Killer Crocodile with Dr. Adrian Smith from England, we will be giving away a mystery prize. And these mystery prizes have been donated by Kenny B. Santito. Love you, Santito. It could be anything. It's a guaranteed DVD, Blu-ray, book, magazine, a knick-knack, or something from south of the border, preferably legal something. So,
if you're mailing it, I definitely hope preferably legal, but that's beside the point.
I'm not. It's coming straight from Santito.
Oh, like I said, he can send whatever he wants. That's between him and customs.
That's true. So, because I still haven't figured out what to replace the B-movie koozies with. That was the problem.
I know, and I promised you I would come up with something, and I haven't. So my apologies.
I know. I'm still waiting.
I will find something, Mary, before the next cast. And my budget is what, $5 or $10?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right.
$12 was what Roger gave Jim Cameron to design the Nanilia set with Kamen. And that's where he came up with the idea of using egg crates.
Oh, I love that.
Oh. He gave him $12 to design a set.
Yes. And he used carnation milk crates for the bottom, and that's what the floor was, and you could put steam through that because it was all hollowed with forms. And I actually used that for a movie I directed for Roger, Forbidden World, and also the egg crates. But he used egg crates and carnation boxes and lit them.
Hey, it worked.
They're painted. They look great.
Yeah.
I was going to say...
Yeah, a little thing called kludge, which is like piping that's like not rubber. It's not even... They didn't even make it as rubber. It's some kind of fabricated stuff that is easy to pick. So you got to be very careful.
Wow.
Well, and, when you're watching Battle Beyond the Stars, as an example, all the spaceships have very different interiors, just like they have very different exteriors.
Yeah, they all had different designers.
Yeah, and I thought that was brilliant. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Alan?
Well, the main designer was fired.
Whoa.
And so, because he was a traditional sort and, was able to do drawings, but he couldn't build anything. So he couldn't adapt. And so, but he didn't last. And then that's when the Skotex came over and did what they could, and Chuck Comiskey did what he could, and Jim did what he could, and whoever came up with the design that people liked, people went with it. So it was kind of a free-for-all design thing, because the main art director had only lasted, I think, a month or two into serious pre-production. Jimmy Murakami got the job to direct because he was an animator too, and he had directed the second unit live action for Roger before, and he was able to storyboard the movie. The problem was that he couldn't get people to move and properly, or camera and people to move at the same time, which is a real problem, that filmmakers need to overcome if they're going to be filmmakers. And I taught for years at USC, and that was the biggest problem with film students, getting them to move a camera and people at the same time. And I came from theater into film, and that was a requirement. If people are talking, they better move, otherwise it's boring. So the problem I had with Battle as an editor was that people didn't move. So the movement had to be created with the rhythm of editing, and to edit so that any movement at all was exaggerated and seen, cut in for the movement of the hand. It moved.
That sounds tedious.
Tedious editing. Editors get over tedium instantly, otherwise you can't be an editor.
Oh, okay.
You have to, but again, it gets back to the pain thing. You have to have pain to be creative. So you can be creative if you can overcome pain.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Well, it makes sense. And, Mary, you're always talking about, you studied art, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you do, you paint and do different things. And if it wasn't work to do it, it wouldn't be art.
That's true.
And that's also why not everybody is cut out to be an editor. Because, and I think this is one thing that I've learned, and Alan, you may not know my background particularly, but I've produced 3 independent films. And when I say independent, I mean very independent films. Quit laughing, Mary. None of my films are bad.
But
Thank you.
No, they aren't. They're very good. But it's kind of like the way Alan was at the beginning. I mean, he was at that transition period between film and basically independent producers and directors and companies. And we're now at that stage again where we're moving into really small-scale independent producers and directors.
Well, and part of that has to do with the barrier to entry has dropped. You know, that's one of the things when in the 70s and even the 80s and before, when you were making a movie, you had to buy film stock, and just buying film stock to shoot a movie was expensive. And then you had to send that film to a lab. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Alan.
It was reserved for rich kids, They made the independent movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now, and then I think in the 80s was when it really, hey, we can do stuff on video and we can shoot stuff for direct for video. But even then, a lot of the direct for video was still being shot on, 35 millimeter, but they, some of it moved to being shot on video. But now with digital, the barrier to entry has dropped significantly. And that has it has a plus side and a minus side. The plus side is that filmmakers and creatives can put their work out there. The minus side is that everybody who wants to give it a try can put their work out there. And it gets kind of lost in a sea of... I don't want to see a sea of mediocrity, but let's just say you can...
There's always been a sea of mediocrity. Then you always have that challenge. But being in film at any time has always been a good time. It's the Wild West. Anyone can break through to the top at any time.
Yeah.
And, people, become filmmakers by making a film on whatever level. Yep. And that's always been true. But now it's overwhelming how now the struggle is to define the style between what's Hollywood and not Hollywood, and be very specific about not being Hollywood. So I don't think Hollywood is looked at anymore as a place, as a role model.
That's true. Yeah.
So now it's whoever can be most inventive with the least amount of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, God knows we have a... Oh, go ahead.
Aren't you premiering your Fall of the House of Usher?
As a matter of fact, thank you. I had actually forgotten. I wanted to announce that. Yes. The third film that me and my partner, Brian, have made, Fall of Usher is what it's called.
Oh, okay.
And Fall of Usher will be premiering at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in October in Portland, Oregon. Woohoo! with a that's a woohoo, and it's a double woohoo. They're going to actually do a special pre-premiere screening at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, or H.P. Lovecraft Festival, I guess, in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm not sure what the relationship is with H.P. Lovecraft in Portland, but apparently H.P. Lovecraft was from Providence, and so that's why there's sister festivals, and maybe I think they're actually owned by the same person. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to do a sneak peek at the Providence one, which is in August, later this month, actually. Ooh. And then they'll do the official premiere. We're having the official premiere in Portland. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to post some links for the listeners. Anybody who wants to show up in Portland, Brian, myself, Fiona, a couple of the actors from the film have all already decided we're going out there for it. Cool. So it should be a lot of fun, though.
Ooh.
Yeah. And all this goes way, way, way back to to what I was about to say with editing, which is I think people really do misunderstand what editing is for a movie. Do you think that's true, Alan?
Well, that's why I wrote the book. Originally, it was called, from my point of view, from my POV, editing the invisible art. And that's what I called it in 1979 because I kept saving films, saving scenes. That's what, you come in every day and there's dailies and everything. So many things don't work. So you have to, number one, you have to figure out what you have to hide. That's pretty obvious. And that becomes your first obstacle. And then it's how do I turn this into something that's really good or can be acceptable, as something that works. So, that's the challenge. And often the B movie editor has more of a challenge than an A movie editor. An A movie editor has the challenge to be sensitive and to be able to discuss stuff with the director often and be able to choose among a number of good items, a number of good shots, a number of good ways to express one thing. The B movie editor has to devote all of his or her time to finding the one way that works. So there's a challenge, a filmmaking challenge that's really interesting. You have to know everything to be able to pull it off and to be able to execute it, and in a short period of time.
So you don't have the director in there breathing down your neck?
Never. No.
Oh.
You have to go as fast as they shoot, number one. So the only time you see the director is when you visit the set or in dailies. And dailies are usually, for Roger, there's no time to sync them up the same day because you're working on editing. And so the dailies are shown during lunchtime because everyone's working too hard to show it at night. So you gather around the lunchtime just to see if everything came out exposed well. You never hear the acting, so everyone thinks the acting's great.
Oh, that is too much
and
pressure.
then the director's only allowed a few weeks afterwards. The producer can't wait to get rid of the director in a B movie. They just stand in the way. And believe me, I got it when I directed B movies. But but as the editor, I wanted the director out of there because that person already did enough to screw up the movie.
So thinking about it, because you've worn the director's hat, you've worn the editor's hat. Which one do you prefer?
Directing. Are you kidding? It's so much easier than editing. But directing is a blast. Editing is torture. But few people do it, so you can, you have work. I mean, that's how I got. I mean, to survive in the industry, you had to pick a job in the industry that you can earn money from. And it was easy for me, right out of the outset, to pick editing because no one else wanted to do it.
Wow.
It's like being a catcher in Little League. I could start on the Little League team because no one wanted to catch. And what went wrong is I caught a neighbor who was a fastball pitcher, and his father was the coach, and he wound up being on the Orioles farm club. I had to catch a fastball pitcher in practice as well as games, so I had a bruise on my hand the whole summer, every summer. I started.
Well. And
anyway, but being a film editor is like being a catcher in baseball. You've got you're directing it. Although you don't get, everyone thinks the pitcher is, but you're calling the pitches. You're strategizing. The hitters. You know how to make. True. You're trying to visualize the game.
I don't know anything about sports, so I'll believe you.
No, because a lot of times the catcher will be the one that's giving the signals to the pitcher,
the fingers,
telling the pitcher what to pitch.
Okay.
So
I get it now.
Yeah, and you got to be the one blocking the plate when someone slides in. So there's a lot of physical sacrifice.
Yeah. And oftentimes the editor has to tackle the director when he comes to the door, so there's that physical aspect too, right?
The The editor cannot tackle ever. You lose your job right away. Never work again. The best thing is just find a way to get rid of him or her.
Yeah.
Without physical. Nothing physical.
Well, you just tell them there's somebody who has got money outside there, and they're looking for someone for a new film.
No, the only way to do it is to work on your own all night before the director comes in, and he loves it. And he sees that more work is being achieved with the person not being in the room. That's the goal and the attempt to win the favor for trust me, I can find the movie for you. I can express. And so, that's, directors have long relationships with that editors when they find that rapport.
Wow.
Now, I do have a question, because I know Roger Corman is famous for, if a film is not coming into budget, he may make alterations to the movie kind of on the fly. And, I've heard stories that he...
sorry.
I was going to say, I heard he's come in and removed scenes just almost willy-nilly. And I don't know, is that something that really happened on Battle Beyond the Stars, for example?
Never.
Okay.
But he check every day where everything is being spent.
Gotcha.
And he doesn't go over budget. That was the whole thing. I mean, he had to go over budget on certain things because we were using the Elecon camera, which was used in Star Wars, but it was a computer. It was the first computer camera, so that you could repeat moves and use the star field in more than one ship in a shot. And so but you had to do the same camera move over and over, and the computer would keep breaking down. And the challenge was always to have more than one ship in a shot. So the deadline kept mounting. But Roger was able to produce the movie on the budget. He did not go over budget. And that's where my role came in, as I was able to save it through editing.
Oh. Okay, don't fix the computer, just dump it on you.
Yeah, of course. But I was willing to... I kept saying I could do that, but there was a big mystery about special effects then. Not many people understood how it worked. I mean, now people understand, but when Star Wars came out, no one really understood how they did it, and when it came to how do you make laser beams and how do you, composite a shot, we're talking about not digital, this is on film. So you had to do mats and that sort of thing. And Roger invented a thing called garbage mats, which is hand-drawn laser beams. So in order to do that, you have to have, on black film, you scratch out the shape of the beam, then you can super that by making another pass in the lab or in an optical house that ran the film over itself to make the white part blast out, so you could have that beam there. So the whole challenge was to have a choreographed display of laser beams in a battle.
So did you do the laser beam part, or was that outsourced?
No, but when I had to fight to get control of the rotoscope department, so I could say, do this by hand. I wanted beams that really, you'll see in battle, the beams are pretty interesting. They go right into camera. They're big, they're fun. And actually, I had this conversation with the head of the rotoscope department when I said I wanted to hit the beams to come to frame and, be real exciting, And, and he said, that's not realistic. You're telling me that laser beams are realistic. I said...
Well, it is important to keep realism with lasers. That's
in a sci-fi movie, yeah.
I just love it.
And it's very interesting to hear how they create the laser beam effects, because that's something you almost take for granted.
It is.
We watch a movie now and it's like, oh, they've got the lasers, you've got all these effects, and this was before you could just digitally add whatever you wanted to. This was, you had to do something to the film and, do this matte process to make those effects appear. And now,
it's that plus the editing, because it's not. You can have pretty laser effects, but that does not a battle make. The battle heredity comes. You've heard the term dogfight, right? And that's the movie style that Marcia Lucas used to do the battle in Star Wars. And when I was working at Warner Brothers, she worked down the hall from me on Taxi Driver, and she's very petite, and her two assistants were these huge guys. It's great. Anyway, but it actually came from David Lean, and who I also made a movie of, because I have this series called Art of Directing that I rescued the Harold Lloyd Masters seminars interviews from AFI. There were only a few from the time that I was there in the 80s, and I turned them into documentaries and discovered that David Lean, who was George and Steven Spielberg's hero and my hero as well, when he edited 33 movies before he directed, and when World War II started in England, the United States made a deal with the film to keep the film production alive there. They had a thing called quota quickies, which guaranteed that they would buy 30 movies a year, no matter how much they were made for or what they looked like. They had a flat sum. So David Lean was offered to direct some of them, but he didn't want to because he needed more time. But he worked with Noel Coward, who was Britain's leading playwright and actor. And Noel directed this movie called In Which We Serve, which was a battleship movie with planes and battleships. And David Lean did second unit direction as well as editing. And Noel was only interested in the film, in the shots that he was in, and left it all to David to do everything else.
Wow.
And so he invented that whole style, the whole cutting style, the turrets moving and the close-ups of the things and the one-liners and all that stuff, the whole movement of the dogfight. That's where it came from.
And that is so, it's so amazing that you're talking about that, because that's something that we don't even think about when we see a movie. But somebody had to figure out how to make all that work.
Yeah.
And that's how I think of a dogfight when I think, and especially if you've got, you look at Star Wars when they're attacking the Death Star, you look at, Battlestar Galactica, you look at Battle Beyond the Stars, all of them have that same sort of style for how the fighting occurs, and that's just wow.
Yeah.
I never realized it was a thing.
But that is part of the magic that you don't realize.
Yeah.
That's the invisible side of it.
Yeah.
Well, pace is the key. I mean, Orson Welles said he would still be cutting Citizen Kane, if he could. You just keep pace is the most. He said pace is the most important ingredient in telling a story or in making a movie. David Lean felt that contrast was.
Well, it worked in Battle Beyond the Stars. It had a good pace to it.
Yes, pace is all. That's what you're the best, the most. The editor is really, that's the biggest concern. Huh. You don't want to lose your audience.
No.
Pace keeps your audience glued. Frank Capra realized that, because he came from silent films. So in silent films, he had no trouble keeping the pace up. But once dialogue hit, he had his first cut, and he was in the theater, and it's like he wanted it to go faster because the audience was waiting. So he just had his actors talk faster from that point on. So that's that whole filmic style of the films in the late 30s had that fast talking style.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, you go back and you watch the films from those days, and I noticed that the speed of the dialogue is faster, and to me, it almost feels more realistic. Because sometimes, films, the dialogue will pace poorly, and everyone's...
They were so good at finding urgency for the scenes, so that's up to the director. It's not just talking fast, it's finding the action or the business,
Yeah.
I mean, when Clark Gable burst into the publisher's office, and it happened one night, he talks as fast as possible, but he's a newsman trying to convince his boss to give him money to cover the story, while his attention is elsewhere. And so there's an excuse to talk fast. So you have to solve both.
Now, I think, and what is it, His Girl Friday, I think that film, exactly. A lot of Cary Grant's dialogue was just super snappy and fast in that. And I always liked the dialogue in that movie.
Katharine Hepburn was the best at it.
Oh, yeah. But, okay.
I want to know what your favorite movie is.
Oh.
Me?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie? Something you really love that you go back to all the time?
The Conformist.
Really?
Bertolucci's movie, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that's the best made movie.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to have to put that... Okay, I have seen The Conformist, but I'm going to have to go back and watch it again.
I know.
Just to look at it.
Look at the scene in the woods towards the end, when the assassination of the political leader it's just amazing, and it's a great example of point of view. And I used it to teach with to break down everything, and that was what was taught at AFI. We studied that over and over again.
I've never seen that movie. I'm going to have to watch it now. Okay, what was the favorite movie of yours that you edited?
Forbidden World.
Oh.
Well, then Roger made me take out so much stuff. It was, it was ridiculous. But my cut of Mute is my best.
I did hear there's a Blu-ray with your cut scenes.
It's all a little bit different. The Blu-ray is still, they because it's on video, they timed it so that it's way too bright. The walls were never meant to be that bright, and so I still haven't. The last person that a video company talks to about the film is the director, because they always have a complaint about something, so they avoid them completely. The most absurd thing was with Grunt the Wrestling movie, which came out on Blu-ray, and that's a really funny movie, and it's been never really seen. But it is in the Andy Warhol Museum, because it was supposed to open in New York with Rock and Roll and Wrestling, and Cyndi Lauper and Andy Warhol were going to sponsor it, and I got a quote from Andy for the movie, which is Grunt. It's more than a movie; it's a movement. And but New World released it in the Southeast, and I have to pay my respects to you. But it was during a hurricane weekend, and no one. The head of the second head of distribution at New World on that Friday, I was in his office because I did the trailer too, all that stuff, and he said he pointed to the bottom of his foot, and he said, "You see that?" Of his shoe, and he said, "You see that? That's where you're going to be Monday." And he was right. No one, they didn't even get a trailer. They had an opening. So they came out on Blu-ray, and there's the big ending, and then there are all these black frames in it, and like 12 frames of black or 20 frames of black, and then a sequence of quick frames of black, and I was going, what is this? And I realized that because we shot in 16 then, and I had short cuts, so you can't really hard splice negative that way because it can't go through the machine. So to get quick cuts in subliminal editing without going to an optical, which costs a lot of money to composite, we could, but in 16 you could do a B-roll, a second roll, so you make 2 passes. So when they made the Blu-ray, they only made 1 pass. They forgot the other roll, which had, and that was also black and white, and that was the way to get pure black and white to cut in with color. And so now the Grunt has, and I wrote to them, but they didn't respond. Anyway, so they never talked to the director. So the timing of the film is too bright. So I still can't really watch it yet. But the original print is at UCLA Archive, because I took it, I stole it from Roger, and he found out I had it, and he said he wanted it back, and I refused. Ooh. And then he said he was going to call the police, and I suggested that we donate it to UCLA, archive, which we did. But it couldn't be shown because it's the only print, so you have to make a negative of it, and then a copy, and that gets to be expensive.
So the original, your original cut is in the archive somewhere.
Yes, I have it on three quarter, and that was done. Came out, but the first time that Mutant came out as the alternative thing in the DVD release, but the 3/4 it's a bad copy, so it's dark. It's a little too dark, so it's tough to see the movie the way you make it, unless you are normal. I don't have a normal path. I got these problems I live with. That's and because the book after Battle is on Mutant, so hopefully enough, and that's already written because I kept a journal on directing too.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're writing that one right now?
No, I've already written. I wrote it. Oh. I wrote both Battle and that in '79 and '80. Oh. 79 to '81. I kept a journal every night.
Wow.
There was a break in between but I went right from Battle into Mutant and the development of it. So I didn't really write every day during the development, but once pre-production started, it was every day until the end of the shoot. So it's covered, and I wrote every night after every day of shooting. But I didn't like to sleep, so. As a stutterer, I was normal when the world slept. So as a kid, I didn't like to sleep at night because I could feel good about myself at night. I didn't have to talk to anybody. So, and I watched a lot of World War II movies on black and white on TV. Audie Murphy is like the unsung hero. Do you know about him?
Audie Murphy, yeah.
He was the most decorated soldier in American history.
Yeah.
And then starred in his own movies, and he was actually the first one with PTSD.
We had to buy the entire collection of his movies for my husband's stepmother. That was her absolute favorite actor.
You're kidding? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. That's great.
I'm not good with war movies, so I don't know if I've ever seen an Audie Murphy movie.
Well, Mary, we may just have to watch one, and I don't know that it's fair for the B movie cast, but then again, we do whatever we want.
That's true. We make our own rules.
He even starred in his autobiography, To Hell and Back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that is so interesting to have somebody who was actually there and then turns around and makes a career acting for that.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
He was a major alcoholic.
Well, it goes back to the PTSD, I think. So, that was...
it goes back to being creative, I think.
Well,
it tends to, yeah.
Well, remember, this was a time when it was Yeah, it was suck it up and, oh, the war's over, you don't have any problems now. And, yeah, things have come a long way now in how we handle that.
When I was going through, that's how editors got their break, because the main editors usually drank a lot, so they were too drunk after lunch to work, so you did the work for them. So,
Wow.
You learn not to drink to get your break.
Well, hey, and then if you want more work, you just bring in some. Have some punch here. Enjoy.
That's true.
I know one editor on the movie all in New York, where I started in commercials, and where he got really angry at he would kick the head of the movie all off, so they have to. But he was such a big name editor in commercials, they would just bring in a new moviola for him, or a new head. But the head was big.
Wow.
So.
And I tried to convince Roger to get a flatbed, because that was starting during battle and or before, and I could handle more footage that way. And he didn't want to pay full price. He was considering getting a used one, and Jan de Bont was selling one that he had used during when he was shooting a lion movie for Tippi Hedren, and he was even bitten in the head by a lion. Oh. But the machine that he was trying to sell, which is called a chem, actually had survived a flood, and so Roger found that out and didn't buy it. I do it on moviola, which is really slower, much slower than a flatbed.
Now, when they were shooting Battle Beyond the Stars, I know Roger Corman had bought what was it, in Venice Beach, in that area? Or Van Nuys, was it?
He bought Hammond Lumber. What he did was he took Orion's money. Orion was putting up half the money. So he used Orion's money to buy the land and the studio. It wasn't a studio, it was a lumberyard. So it's a joke to say it was a sound stage when it really wasn't. And then they had an extra stage, which really, really wasn't a sound stage. But there wasn't a lot of traffic there, and it was near the beach. And the funniest thing was that the sign Hammond Lumber stayed up the whole time. That was even a broken sign. It never lit up. And Roger wanted the sign there so he wouldn't get robbed. So people would think it was a rundown lumberyard.
That's smart. And but one of the things, now when you were doing the editing, were you on site there, or was that somewhere else?
No, I started in the special effects department while the lumber, the area where while the editing room was being built above the lumber area where the saw was and all that.
Oh.
But Roger, I was there. I was starting, and Humanoids. Mark Goldblatt, who was cutting Humanoids from the Deep, was ending his thing, and they had us both in the special effects model building room, and they were waiting for the sound stage to be fully functional, or as much as it could, before they could move over there. And we were having problems with floods too. It wasn't, there was a lot of problems with the building itself. So what we found out right away was that whenever Mark and I break the movie all at the same time, we would blow the fuse.
Jeez.
Mark had to break every 8 frames. We cut every 8 frames or 10 frames because the movie was so bad. And he had to make every shot, of the humanoid kind of work by just making it shorter and shorter. So one day Roger was looking at what I had cut, and Mark and I braked at the same time and blew the fuse, and he said, God damn it, we're moving, we moved today. And so he moved me into a room that had been flooded with no windows, that was the costume design storage room. And I refused to move once we got there. And I had to threaten to quit if I just flat out refused. And I won that battle with him. We moved back. And then had another battle, and that Roger really likes to come in the morning to watch with the editor what's newly cut, but he doesn't like other people to watch him at all. So we had a room above the lumber area, and he wanted 4 separate rooms, and I argued that you can't fit moviolas and a table and a phone and this and water thing and a coding machine into these rooms. They're too small, and an editor can't be claustrophobic. It just drives her nuts. So at least I couldn't. So I came in and ordered the people who were building the room to take out the walls and just have a separator that goes 2/3 of the way through the middle. So it's kind of a U-shaped. And the construction guys had grown to like me. And so they protected me when Roger flipped out and saw what they had done. And but he knew who. They said, we don't know. One of the editing people knew who it was, but Roger knew who it was. But he was seen peeling rubber out of the parking lot. So. But it worked out really well. It's a great room, and people loved it after me, and it was a great space.
Now, because I guess they had just sort of started using that lumberyard area and all of that with Battle and with humanoids. But then when you did Forbidden World Mutant, was that shot there also?
No, Humanoids wasn't shot there. They were finishing up the editing.
Oh, finishing. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's...
That never made it over to the stage. But the funny thing with that is that Roger opened it, pretty quickly after that, and it became his biggest profit movie. It was a real success. And the funny thing was that the guy who was in the humanoid suit, to get him to go in the water at night for 2 weeks to be the humanoid, he said, you can have any job you want on my next movie, which was Battle. And the job he wanted was assistant editor. So here I was doing a space movie with an assistant editor who had never assisted before.
Oh my God. So how did that work out?
I pleaded for another assistant who had experience, and he finally Amy Heckerling was a friend of mine from AFI. We'd gone there together, and the person who was her assistant at AFI, and she recommended her, and so she was great, and she took up that what I needed from an experienced assistant.
Sounds like you had to battle Roger on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Oh.
It comes out, but I really loved him, and it's like, you want to prove yourself to him. You really like what he's done. Mm-hmm. You like everything about him, but his cheapness. And he never budged. He never lost a battle on money. He never gave in, and he was, he learned. The whole reason why he started New World Pictures was because his last 3 or 4 movies, he tried to make good movies and they didn't make money. And some of them were the Trip, which I think is a great movie, didn't make money, and Gas was another one that was a really cool movie. It didn't make money, so he wanted, the formula was to copy a plot from a movie that's already been made, have at least 3 parallel stories. So if one's, boring, you cut to the other one. And if it's at least 3, then you can have an unpredictable pattern. and you never go over budget, no matter what reason. And so he could make money that way, and he said his joy was to claim that he's never lost money on a movie. And working for Julie was the one who hired me for Candy Striped Nurses and Crazy Mama, and her goal was to be cheaper than Roger.
But that is how he managed to not lose a lot of money on these films. So. And I have to say one other thing, because I've watched Forbidden World and I've watched Battle Beyond the Stars, and one thing that pops up, and I know it's popped up in a lot of other films, Roger is famous for reusing assets.
But that was my fault. I mean, I got the chance to direct because, Jim Cameron designed the spaceship. He was the production designer of Galaxy of Terror, and so I was doing additional scenes for a kung fu movie that starred Julian Kessner called Firecracker, and the foreign name was Naked Fist. And Roger came to me on a Tuesday and took me for a walk around the block and said, "You want to direct the whole movie, don't you, Alan?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, if you can do a 7 to 8 minute space movie, an opening that can go anywhere, I'll give you a whole movie, and I'll give you a robot and I owe an actor a role, to Jesse Vint, and Cameron's spaceship set, which was being shot on from Monday through Saturday, was free on Sunday because on Monday it was going to be redressed to a burnt set for the crash. So I had 4 or 5 days to produce, write, and direct an opening that could go anywhere. And so I thought, with the robot, I'll put the robot, the astronaut in the freeze. The robot gets attacked by the outtakes from Battle Beyond the Stars, and and then they have to fight the outtakes. He wakes up the astronaut. They fight the outtakes, and he gets his assignment. So it actually started off as a kids movie. And then Roger said, he said, this is a funny story. He said, if you needed any inspiration, this is when he took me for the walk. He said he's always wanted to do a version of Lawrence of Arabia in space. So I said, David Lean's my favorite director. He said, well, then you should have no problem at all. And the only thing that stayed from Mutant Forbidden World with Lawrence of Arabia was the name of the planet, which was Exarbia. After he got a treatment on that, he said, I want to rip off Alien. So that became the modus operandi for the Forbidden World.
Wow.
So, and I love that. And, it's funny because you said Lawrence of Arabia with Forbidden World, Mutant, and I was thinking, I didn't see a lot of Lawrence of Arabia in that film, but now I get it. So.
The Tau, the X on the Tau, Exarvia.
Yep.
There you go.
That's, and
the desert,
Well, yeah, there is some desert in it, so. But going back to Battle Beyond the Stars. So, what was your favorite part of the film to edit? I mean, if there was one area that you said, I really killed it here, what part of the movie would that be?
The Nestor. That was my hardest fought battle in a way, because I fought so hard for humor, and they were saying it's not fun, it's an adventure film, and I said yes, but it's funny, and you've got to keep the humor going, and they wanted me to increase the pace on that, and you had to wait for the humor. And you had to pace it because they were, clones, and they weren't human, and they had a certain way of talking. And it really funny if you just had them wait, And they kept, and I argued with it, and, but I got my way, But it was all a battle.
Well, and it's funny you say that about that, because that was one scene when my wife laughed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she laughed out loud at the when Nestor goes, and it takes 4 of us to fly the ship. And what's the 5th one? Oh, he's a spare. And we both just started laughing at that. So.
Yeah, John Sayles is brilliant. He gave some really good lines.
Yeah. Well, he did some
he
good
was
lines.
really funny. And, I really fought hard to keep the humor.
Yeah, and I think you paced it out nicely with those scenes. So,
yeah,
and it's got to be tough when you're editing, especially something with all those effects shots, because you have to pace it to put the effects in, but you also have to pace it to.
That's really interesting, because that was a major aesthetic problem, because the effects weren't ready. And they were never getting ready, and I had that's what I had the biggest battle with the special effects. My first day at work, the head of special effects, who still works with Cameron, he's done Avatar and Titanic and all that, so all the power to him. But he wanted power then, and the first thing he said is that you live action guys keep screwing over our stuff, so you're not going to get any of our stuff.
What?
Yeah. And I said, well, sorry, but one day you're going to have to give it to me, because I'm the live action editor and I got to put it in. You're not putting it in. I'm putting it in. So, but he wanted everything to take longer, because he wanted more ships in the shot. He had storyboarded, all the effects, and they were really interesting. But my whole thing was that they weren't doing it. They were just doing flybys. Roger called every day to say, how many shots did they do? And I said they did 7 shots, but it was 7 flybys in the same way, a little different, but they weren't doing the story, the written shots, and they kept wanting more time and money. So I refused to cut in slugs. I said, I'm only going to cut in what I have, and I'll keep cutting in when they give it to me. And so if I don't have any exterior shots, I'm going to have people talking to them within the ships and no exteriors. But, and when I get et cetera, and I only wanted to see what was there. And the second editor said, no, the traditional way of working is to cut in slugs, and you use different color leader, for each ship, and have numbers on it, say what the shots are. And, I part of it, because I stuttered, I didn't want to read off shots in the screening. So I developed that aesthetic anyway. But then he convinced everyone that it should be that way. And so we eventually had a screening where he read off all the shots. And, it was just leader going by, just blank, white on the screen. Gelt, comes over the mountain and flares 4 shots, And, you didn't see it, but he said what it was. And so people left the screening going, I finally saw the movie. It's so great. And so a few weeks later, I saw Roger walking dejected in the parking lot. And he said that Chuck said, we can't make our deadline. I can't make the summer. And I said, yes, you can. But I can do it for you. We can have pull character shots and do a choreographed display of laser beams of their different charges into Hammerhead. We have enough flybys, and we'll create, do a little rotoscoping, but I have to have total control to do it. And he said, okay, you can use my name, and so I did, and I took total control, and I did it.
And you got it, August release?
Yeah, we made it.
Yep. So you made the summer.
Yep.
Oh, that is very awesome.
Yes.
Well, Roger actually, when he came into the editing room both times to see each of the battles, he stood up and applauded.
Wow.
But for the last one, I stayed up for 4 nights.
Oof.
You started hallucinating then, but I went to sleep. Really?
Well, we're glad you didn't hallucinate while you were cutting the movie together, because it turned out really well.
But that's how I wound up getting into acting and theater and film from staying up. I had to change my life because I was a math major in college, and we were in the middle of my junior year, and we were studying the fourth dimension, and we were told it didn't apply to life, and I was really depressed because I was a stutterer and I didn't want to teach. So I knew, and I was afraid to take acid because I knew I had a lot of stuff in my back of my past that was, I didn't know, I was repressed, and I, didn't trust myself. But I knew if you stayed up for 4 nights, you would, your brain secretes the same acid that a trip would do. So I did that, and I walked, and I was really tripping, and I walked with my philosophy teacher in the snow, and I was only wearing a short sleeve shirt. And I told him my dilemma, and he said, well, what do you want to do? And stutterers don't stutter when they act. And I had acted in some plays just for fun. And I said, I wanted to communicate. And he said, how can you communicate? I said, well, I can act. He said, well, go act. And so I packed my bags and went to New York City and wound up at Circle in the Square Theater, where Dustin Hoffman was just cast in The Graduate. Wound up getting a scholarship to Williamstown Summer Theater, and then a full scholarship to Bennington College when it was still an all-girls school. And my theater teacher started a film, and I went with him and learned everything. We were making movies in the camera, and and then and that's how I learned editing. So myself, I learned editing by cutting black leader and white. I was in school projectionist. So I had splicer and leader to fix film with. So I cut white leader and black leader together to the Beatles' White Album. That's how I learned editing.
So tell me, when did you meet your wife? Did you meet her on Battle Beyond the Stars?
No. I met her before I went to work for Corman, like for the second time. So I met her at a wedding party. We were supposed to meet at the wedding rehearsal dinner, but she didn't. We were supposed to be fixed up, but she didn't show up. And then I went to the wedding party, which was after the actual wedding, which we weren't invited to. It was small, but outside. It was a party in the people's house, so it was intimate, but for me to, as soon as I got there, I saw her, and I wanted to talk with her, but I stuttered, so I didn't stutter when I was drunk. So I got 4 drinks, and then I went up to her. I've been with her ever since, and that was in '77.
Wow!
And I just come back from editing in Asia, and I was wearing clothes that were all too short, small, because I bought a raw Thai silk in Bangkok, and then I worked in Hong Kong at Raymond Chow Studios and had Hong Kong tailors imitate my clothes with that material, and they always make stuff that's too small, tight everywhere. So I was wearing all these tight handmade clothes.
Oh, must have impressed her.
But what she was wearing, steamed stockings and leotard, and she played 4 songs on the piano. I was just blown away. And so
you've worked on a lot of movies with her, haven't you?
Whenever I can. It was like once we got married, I couldn't get her hired again because no one would let me hire my wife.
Oh.
Roger was cool about hiring a woman, though. He was really great. Most of the people who worked for him were women in the office. They were all Stanford graduates.
Wow.
And all had rich backgrounds, so rich parents, so that Roger could pay them next to nothing. And he was a great father image, He was always predictable. One thing that was a great Roger story is that Francis Coppola lived next door to him. And Roger's girlfriend, before he got married, before Julie, So Roger's girlfriend, Roger would use Francis's bathroom because his girlfriend spent too much time in the bathroom in the morning and he wanted to get to work on time. And then Francis moved, and Roger started using the bathroom at work. So that's what he did his whole career. And then his bathroom was over the work. The office it first started on Sunset, and then it went to San Vicente in Brentwood, and his office was above a restaurant, and he was so upset of having to pay for the restaurant, he bought the restaurant.
Wow.
And when we were working out the script for Mutant, he told the writer Tim Kernan and me, while he and Francis had to, Francis Dole, who was an Oxford graduate, who was his story editor and brain consultant for all of his movies, while they were working something out, he said, go downstairs and cut 12 pages out and have lunch and do that. And so we did, and we told the people when we were leaving, we'd go back to the office, that Roger was going to pay for the lunch, and they called Roger, and he refused to pay for the lunch.
No. And he owned the restaurant.
Rented his own restaurant, to do where he assigned us to go.
Wow. That is cheap.
Well, yes. No comment. Guess there really is no such thing as a free lunch, but
Well, isn't there more stuff about Battle that you want to talk about rather than
yeah. Sorry, we've gone down some rabbit holes, but we tend to do that. But it's so much fun hearing you talk about this stuff, Alan. Seriously. Okay. Mary, what else would you like to know about it?
But all the stuff I'm talking about is all in the book. I have to plug the book, so yes.
Yes.
Sorry to
buy the book.
All in the book.
I was going to say, and you said it comes out in October, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's really cool. Where would be a good place if I were to put a link up? Where would be a good place to go ahead and pre-order it, maybe?
It's Pulp 2.0 Press.
Pulp 2.0 Press. Okay, so I can look that up, and that won't be a problem at all.
Yep.
So
there's one game that I would love to be able to do. Not game, but over the years, I've been trying since 1982 to get this book published. And for a while, I was playing. I did a book reading once where I said, I asked the people there to pick a page, and I would just go to it and start and read there, just the opening, just to show what it was. So I don't know if we have time to do that, but I would love for you guys to pick a page and
Mary, pick a page.
Sample.
I don't have the book.
You don't have to have the book, Mary. Just pick a page.
Oh, pick a page. Okay. 10.
10. I don't know if it starts by then.
Oh, okay.
No, it does. No, it doesn't. It actually does. Sorry, I should have said. It doesn't start at page 18.
Okay.
So higher than 18.
No. The first is from page 27 on.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff before that with pictures of Roger's career. Okay.
How about?
Oh no, it starts at 13 is the fourth book. But anyway, that's enough. So go for 19 or more.
35.
Okay.
Did I pick a good one?
Journal entry Thursday, February 7th, 1980, 9:05 p.m. I cut a scene where Shad, Richard Thomas, meets the clones by extending the pauses and milking the actors' reactions. The combination of stiff clones and a relaxed Richard Thomas is charming and engaging. Shad, your clones. That Nestor, in a matter of speaking, we share identical consciousness. What one sees, all see. What one knows, all know. Shad, And you, all of you, want to help us? Nestor, these 5 facets, yes. 4 are required to operate the ship. Shad. And the 5th? Nestor, we always carry a spare. There you go. The camera department finally came up with a movement in the middle of a scene. They also put the camera in the center of the action. Perhaps my message got through. I'm relaxing with my editing, looking for ways to play around and have fun. So you picked the Nestor.
I picked the Nestor.
And it's funny that she picked that part, because that was one of the parts when I was reading it that I was thinking about. Yeah, and we got the laugh when during that scene. It was very light and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good call, Mary, on the 35.
Actually, I have to say my favorite scene in the movie is when they're sitting around that campfire at night, and it was cold, and the campfire were the Kelvins.
Yes.
I just got such a kick out of that. It was just, I don't know, so clever. I liked that one.
Well, it was cute, and and what was it? George Purpard, the cowboy, he was cooking a couple of hot dogs.
Yeah.
And over the Kelvins. Yeah. Like I said, there was a lot of really fun, clever stuff in that movie, and I think that little scene, there was a whole lot going on there that was just fun and clever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they were on the ground facing the Malmori, who were attacking with their sonar tank, and they were able to force the I forget what it was now, but they were able to redirect it so that it made all the Malmori have diarrhea, and they all had to kick their legs out.
Yeah.
And I actually don't even remember if that made it into the final movie or not, but it was in for a long time. But that's where I suggested that they should have green blood. Someone should stab them, so they added that in. That was a note from the
Okay. And it's funny because that was another thing. I don't normally talk so much about what my wife said about a movie, but she actually commented. She said, "Why do all the aliens always have green blood?" And I said, "Because they're aliens.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to show they're not human."
No, because the editor said so.
And now I'll tell her it's because in this case the editor said so too.
Oh. Well, Nick, you pick a page.
Okay, let's do one more. I would like to pick a page, and now I'm cheating a little bit, so I'm going to pick page 41.
Oh, the pages that you have might be different than mine.
In that case, maybe I'm not. But I've got just as for the readers to know, I've actually got. He sent me an advanced, like a screener copy of it, but as he just said, the pages may be different. So,
yeah, I have what actually went to press, which caused some delays because there were too many graphics behind text, and that has to be changed, and the margins have to be fixed. So I actually have a different layout. That's what's causing the actual delay right now. So,
okay.
What page did you pick? I'm sorry.
Well, listen. I was thinking about page 41, or actually page 40.
Okay.
Would be better.
Okay. Journal entry Monday, February 11th, 1980, 1 a.m.
Yep.
Bob, who's the second editor, Bob showed his edited material, and with the exception of a short scene that I liked a lot, his editing style was way off. He didn't fight hard enough to make things work. He gave into the faults of the movie and exposed them. Hence, the scenes looked awkward, poorly acted, and haphazardly constructed. I asked for a lot of changes. He kept silent. He's a tough guy to read. He doesn't let it out. He likes to win, and he wants to do it his way, so he locked horns. I asked him if he had any questions, complaints, or criticisms, and he didn't say anything. He recut his scenes, and they were 3 times improved. I'd say they were 80% there. Mine were about 90%. So we're not too far off. He's going to be okay. I feel we're just getting out of the starting gate, but it's the best start yet.
Is that the editor that didn't know?
To the next journal entry at 2:15 a.m. the next day. Depressing day. The footage had many problems, very theatrical. Every actor waiting for other actors to finish their lines, jumping cues, trying to be more impressive than the others. Half of the time they look straight at the person who's going to deliver the next line. The actor playing Zed, the blind leader of the Akira, walks directly towards an empty seat. He also manages to point directly at the person to whom he's referring and yells almost every one of his lines. Apparently, he's hard of hearing, too. This was his big scene.
So how'd you fix that?
Well, I'll go on. The most difficult problem of the actor sitting in the opposite side of the table was never filmed, except in a master from behind. Even though he has three crucial lines in the scene, no shot reveals his face. The first two lines he speaks, I cut back to the master, advancing his lines about 6 frames before cutting to him, an old editor's trick called prelap. Helps stimulate curiosity. By the time you see what you've heard, you're not so picky about how you got there. But there was no saving this the third time. His crucial line sets up Richard Thomas's last line, Shad must speak to an actor who isn't even filmed. So later, I talked to Jimmy about that. I went to the set and I said, you got to find a way to shoot a close-up of him. And Jimmy, the director, and he said he didn't like him. He refused to do it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, okay, one other little thing about the book that I like, and I hope this made it from the copy that I got into the final print, but just about every, period, maybe about once a week during the timeline of this, the book will just have a little thing in the bottom of the page that says 150 days till,
Yes. Yeah.
Till the movie premieres.
Yes.
Which you have to, what was it? Somebody once said, Roger Corman practically shoots a movie as soon as you hand him the script. So this time pressure on everything, and I like that because it really, it shows the kind of it accentuates the kind of stress that everybody was under.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the publisher's idea, which I love.
No, I think it's great, and I am going to say personally that for anybody listening to the cast, if you're listening to this cast, first off, you're a fan of B movies, you're a fan of film, and this book is really, really good.
Well, it shows you the technical aspects of it that you don't really get in most books.
Well, and it's not just the technical bit, though. It's a very human technical bit.
Yeah.
Because this is Allan's journal entries, and so it's, while there's the technical aspect that's covered, it's also the very personal aspect, and I really like the way those two things play together.
Okay. I did want to talk a little bit about James Horner.
Oh, please. I love the music for this, by the way. This is James Horner did the score.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did the score also for Humanoids from the Deep. But Battle was his big shot, and Roger gave him $20,000 for the score, and he used it all to record it in London with the London Symphony Orchestra.
Wow.
But Roger at the mix insisted upon having mono because he saved like $9,000.
Oh.
So the mix is in mono, but James, who was known as Jamie then, got him back because with the Star Trek score that he did after that, it's almost the same score, but beautiful stereo. And I sat with him I was his music editor as well. And he was extraordinary because he wanted to know the exact frame for every single cut. Plus, he designated certain actions inside the shots he wanted exact frames for. And he wouldn't trust that stopping the moviola and reading on the meter what it would do. He insisted for every number going back a frame and forward a frame beyond that, so that the number of the frame would be absolutely exact. And I swear he hit every cut and every action exactly.
Wow.
Amazing.
That would be incredibly difficult to write, I would think.
Well, that's
I would
his
think,
genius.
but it really pays off in the film too. I mean, it's just the music makes the film feel bigger even than it is.
Yeah,
and that's I mean, it's a proper score.
He went to Eisenstein for that because it's the score is from Prokofiev.
Oh wow!
So if you listen to, so he always would go to classical reference, and then so he would pick different ones for different films, but that was his way of working. But he would make them his own. But he would always have that depth of finding a score that inspired him.
I read somewhere where that entire score was used again for Wizards of the Lost Kingdom. That he used a lot of pieces of that score in other movies.
Yeah. And why not?
I was going to say, it's perfectly good piece of music. Let's use it.
Yeah. Well, Horner did Aliens and Titanic, too, didn't he?
Yes, he did all of James Cameron.
Yeah. Remember, this is Roger Corman's film school.
That's true, yeah.
If you want to get your start in Hollywood, a really good way to do it is just work with Roger Corman for a while.
Yeah.
But I actually had the task. He wanted to do the score for Mutant, and I said no. I want my wife to do it. I don't want an orchestral score. I want a new wave electronic.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of her band?
Pardon?
What was the name of her band?
It was her name, the Susan Justin Band. It was also called Pink Plastic for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
She only wore pink.
She only wore pink.
The first gift I got her was a pair of pink plastic earrings, and I kept buying her pink accessories. And then she decided she had spent a couple of years in Denmark at the music conservatory and had a lot of scarves that were pink. And then she just evolved into only wearing pink for about 5 years, and then it was black for 3, and then green for 2, and then we started to have children. That was it.
then you lose your identity.
At least you're close.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I think, is there anything else we want to cover talking about Allan's experience with the film, or?
Well, the one thing I wanted to mention about what you said before, we were talking about before about how people can make movies now that are so inexpensive and so many people can make them. Editing, if you have the power of editing, you have the power of making a movie. Because almost anybody can shoot, but to actually make something of it and turn it into something, you need the power of editing.
Huh.
So.
Well, thank you.
And that's true. I mean, I've always heard that, when you're making a film, it's like everybody that's involved in the film is a construction crew. And, the director is kind of the architect, and the actors are the bricks and the mortar and the wood. And you build this building, But you get all the pieces together, and it's the editor that actually puts it together and makes it a building. So
that makes sense.
Or decides to turn it into row houses.
Well, yeah, that's it. Or makes it a garage if need be.
Yeah, makes an underground parking lot.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's talk. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the cast, but at the same time, I do want to talk about the cast because it had a really good cast. I mean,
yeah.
Richard Thomas as Shad, he was our main character, and
the Waltons was a huge hit TV show for years.
I know, but
that's
why I didn't like him as Shad, because I couldn't get away from John Boy.
I know, it was John Boy in space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Space John Boy. And if somebody had said goodnight, Shad, at some point, that would have been awesome.
The cool thing, though, was that he was a virgin, so,
Yeah, that kind of helped. Yeah, that was good casting, I guess, for that.
Yeah. Well, he did look super innocent.
Yeah.
And, I think he was probably, about 30 at the time he was shooting this, but he really played it younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was good. And, okay, and I have to jump around a little bit, but my very favorite person that was involved as an actor in the film was Robert Vaughan.
Really?
Because... well, think about this. At the end of the day, this movie is essentially the Magnificent Seven / the Seven Samurai. And so you get Robert Vaughan, and he's playing this character Gelt, this intergalactic assassin with a bounty on his head. And that is almost to a T the character he played in the Magnificent Seven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was just such a, because people will say, oh, wow, they're ripping off the Magnificent Seven. I don't feel like it was ripping off the Magnificent Seven because it's a story. And it's just telling the story different.
That was the plan. It was Star Wars and the Magnificent Seven. That was, and the Seven Samurai. So
right.
That was the intention. That's why the planet is called Akira.
Yep.
Or Akira Kurosawa. But why, but the name Gelt is just hysterical because it means money. But,
I do like how they did that.
And and the other thing in this, I'm going to skip around, but, we talked about the ship design and how all the different people working on the special effects and the, we're creating these different ships. And part of that was so that when you were outside of the ship, you could tell who was who.
Well, here's how they actually did it, because they would just get sets of models and take and use and mix up all the parts and then construct the parts together.
What?
So all the models made up of different little parts of all the little sets that people could get their hands on.
Oh.
But they couldn't make the little parts. But if you collect all the sets, all the parts, you can mix them up.
You can mix and match and make what you need.
Yeah.
Was the space station really made from a plastic terrarium that they got from a dumpster?
Possibly. Definitely. Everything was made from everything. It was like you had no money.
Yeah.
So you had to be inventive.
Yeah, I heard there were times when they were filming the interiors of ships, and it'd be like, don't touch the wall over there because the paint's still wet.
Oh, exactly.
But no, I loved Robert.
It was like, don't touch the wall because it'll cave in. Honestly, with the egg crates, you couldn't
Yeah, it'll cave in on you.
I like that the lizard-looking alien was called Cayman because it looked like an alligator. I got a kick out of that.
No, he was. I really liked him too.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman is a great actor. You know.
And who else? Oh, John Saxon is in this.
I know.
God, I love John Saxon.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays such a good villain in this. And, you know, it's just, he's Sador, he's the leader of the Malmori. And, you know, these guys are all kind of mutants, it looks like. You know, they've all got problems. But one of the things I really liked was that Sador, he would just cut off bits and pieces of other aliens and have them surgically attached to his body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, using these transplants. I guess it was, you know, him renewing his life or whatever. And that really plays well in this as to the evil side of him.
Yeah.
And, okay, George Purpard. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just so funny just hearing you talk about it and laughing. You know? I mean, just names like Sador, you know.
Yeah.
Malmori. Mal is bad.
No, you know, and you got, I mean,
I love
George Purpard.
And their ship was Hammerhead, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
I missed that part.
The Hammerhead.
I like when they cut off the arm of what were the names of the guys that were white? The Nesters, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the arm took over. I loved that part.
Well, and again, that was just really clever writing, I think. You know, to think about adding something like that into it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I read that he took the job because he thought the script was funny and amusing. John Saxon.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he took the role, because he thought it was funny. Well,
and it'd be a little bit different from some of the other stuff he'd been playing at the time, so.
That's true.
But then you had George Purpard as Space Cowboy. And, okay, I love the fact that his character never actually had a name. He was just Space Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's out there and he's exactly what his name says. I mean, the only thing, instead of carrying a 6-shooter, he carried a bar on his belt.
I want that. I want that belt that dispenses scotch and soda and ice.
Well, we're working on the technology, Mary.
Okay.
Don't worry. If we develop it, I'll get you a bar belt for your birthday.
Yay!
And of course, and there were so many good character actors in this too. And I mean, one I do have to mention, Sybil Danning. She was Saint Exmund, the Valkyrie warrior who was basically just out riding around looking for a fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's funny because I was watching the film, and when her character came on, my wife sort of started laughing, and, you know, we were talking about it, and she's like, yeah, she's sort of fallen out of that costume. And I was like, yeah, but they wanted this one to be PG, so she doesn't quite fall out of it ever. So
what happened was that Dorinda Wood, the costume designer, ripped the spandex, but it kept ripping. So it wound up showing much more than she ever dreamed, and Roger kept it, but the spandex kept ripping, kept expanding.
Wow. Did they really have to keep it on her with Band-Aids in some places? Because it shifted?
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Oh, I'm sure there was a lot of Band-Aids and a lot of that, like...
I mean, it was really hard to make something work. It's a challenge, you know. It's one thing to be, editors have the freedom to be as critical as possible, because you expect everything to be perfect and work out. But, shooting, I mean, they were, when I went to the set, and I didn't like going to the set too much, because I didn't want to get any feedback. But they used smoke in every shot, so people couldn't breathe. It was really difficult. And then the cowboy set was all brown. That was all spray painted brown, and like the dirt they had brought in there was toxic. So people were all coughing, they were sick, they were working day and night, and trying to do it for Roger. And like one thing that there's a point where Danielle, the DP, was French. So you had a Japanese director and a French cinematographer.
Wow.
And there was one point when the Skotex were designing a spaceship, I forget which one it was, and it wasn't finished, and they had to be ready by the next morning, and they needed time, and Danielle came onto the set to light it, and Bob said, we don't have time to break, we have to be working on this, otherwise you won't have the set to shoot on. Don't worry, it's easy to light, just put lights outside the set and go through the set, because the set was, had all these forms, and it was designed to shoot through. And Danielle wouldn't listen to him, and he brought his gaffer on, and Bob actually took him and threw him off the set.
Whoa.
Wow.
But it was hard. It was really difficult to shoot it in such a short period of time.
How long was the
and things
shoot?
had to be in the camera. You couldn't. There was no digital work. You could composite layers.
Yeah.
But you couldn't fix a shot.
How long was the actual shoot?
That was a little over 4 weeks. No, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
It's nothing.
Oh.
And now, again,
my film was 4 weeks.
What was
for Mutant?
Yeah. And then Roger gave me 3 extra days to kill the mutant, because I was doing so well. Sweet.
Well, I want to save some of the mutant stories, by the way, because I feel like we need to do Forbidden World on the cast.
We do.
And have you back on for that, especially, it gets a little closer to the next book coming out. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But.
I like Sam Jaffe.
Sam Jaffe was wonderful. I mean, I grew up with Ben Casey, so it was an honor to work with him. He was great.
Yeah.
He was classy,
He could have been one of the Head movies that we did.
That's true.
Vince loved Head movies. Like
we have we have a habit of doing movies about heads on platters, and he was a head on a a vending machine almost.
I like that head on a platter.
Yeah. Well, he was the space station, though. That was the fun thing,
Yeah.
And he had his daughter there, and she was played. Her name was Nanelia, and she was
Nanelia.
Nanelia. Yeah, thank you. I'm terrible at saying this stuff, but she was played by Darlene Flugel.
Flugel, yeah.
Yeah, I was really worried about pronouncing her name right too, but that was a lot of fun with the way they interacted. She and Shad interacted because, in one way he is this kind of naive young space farmer, and she's literally never been around other humans for her whole life. So it's kind of fun seeing how they interact. And they have their one big romantic scene, which it's cute. I don't want to spoil it, but it's a cute scene. So
yeah, it is.
And
but she's got all these male robots, and it's a great. So they had to get that set together. They were just getting mannequins, went on a search to find any kind of mannequin parts and just get them on the set and, costume them. It was kind of crazy, but it worked really well.
No, it was a neat little set, and at one point they do have Shad riding around in this little cart, essentially, and at first he's kind of captured by it, but then later he's riding in it with her, and literally I think they drove 20 feet and then got out of it, and I was, my first thought was, well, they paid for that little automatic wagon. They're going to use it.
I thought golf cart.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Except I don't think they played a lot of golf on the space station. But...
No. No.
Okay, one other actor, and there's just tons of people pop up in this, but one that I really want to mention because I thought it was funny that she was in it was Marta Kristen, who she was Lux, and she was the kind of the love interest for Space Cowboy.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring her up because she was Judy on Lost in Space.
Danger, Judy Robinson.
Yeah, well, the danger for Judy, I think, was what's his name, Don West, but that's beside the point. But I just thought it was great that they had this, one of the iconic 60s sci-fi actresses was there in this movie, and that's a good little touch. And I don't know that most people would recognize her, but I was a big fan of the original Lost in Space, so I knew who it was right off.
Julia
I was like,
Duffy.
oh, what?
Julia Duffy played Maul.
That was Shad's sister, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, she was Newhart and Designing Women. I didn't even recognize her. I didn't even realize it until after I started doing research on this thing.
Well, and Earl Bowen, he was the psychiatrist in all the Terminator movies. Oh. And he was Nestor number 1.
He was great. I just loved him.
Yeah, he was great in that too.
Nestors were fun.
Well, the Nestors were such a clever idea.
I know.
And again, it goes back to when this film was, when they made the film, you had such a good variety of aliens. I mean, you were just all over the place with different aliens and the different spaceship designs, and it all really kind of came together to make the film feel bigger than it was.
Yeah. And I appreciate when they make characters different looking like that.
Yeah.
You that last movie we did, what was it? The obloid of...
Oh, okay. You're thinking about the hyperboloid of Engineer Garin.
Yeah, that last movie we just did. Everybody looked alike to me. And I couldn't figure out whose character was who, and then they started changing sides and being a good guy one time and a bad guy, and I was so confused in that movie. I need, definite different-looking aliens and people to keep track of the story.
Well, you had it in this one, and all the good guys had an interesting look. All the bad guys had a very sinister look to them, and so that helped also. Yeah, but
one unique thing about Battle, and I still am on the rope about whether I like it or not. Was the Jewish mother's voice for Nell.
Yes.
Where does that come from? And he was the producer's wife, Ed Carlin. And I argued so much for Patricia Neal because she was around and she came to visit Richard Thomas, and I thought she came by because they were going to have her do the voice. And so, but but it's funny and it's charming, but I could never understand the logic of how that would survive as a robot voice, as a machine voice. But it did.
It worked.
Works,
I thought it did, yeah.
And the ship has breasts, so, it really works.
And the ship has breasts, so.
That's crazy. A spaceship with breasts, and that became, it's such a silly thing, but it became almost the hallmark of the movie. That's the main image you see on the DVD or the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ship that leads, not the Hammerhead, not Geld ship, which is the coolest ship, or Cayman ship, which is really great.
Yeah.
But now, with the breasts.
I have to admit, I didn't think they were breasts at first. I thought they were another part of male anatomy.
You thought they were balls?
Yeah. They just looked like balls hanging from the bottom of the ship. And it was like, damn, I think those are supposed to be breasts.
Now you ruined the movie for me.
Sorry.
Okay, Mary, they
beyond the
would have put them in
balls.
the back.
I take it back.
They would have put them in the back then, okay?
Well, yeah, that's when it kind of, yeah.
And that movie that I made is Forbidden Balls. There you go.
There you go.
But there's a movie, Spaceballs, right? So.
Yeah. Forbidden
that
Spaceballs.
Was the sequel. Next up on
where I was the catcher. There it's come to
Oh, why do we keep going down rabbit holes like this?
Because it's fun.
But
that's okay. I think at this point I want to drop in and just do a quick plot synopsis for everybody. And, okay, I'm going to say we've had Allan talking about the film. Mary and I have been talking about the film. We've given away a whole lot of spoilers.
Oh, we always do.
We always do, but I'm going to go ahead and say, stop the podcast and go watch the movie, then come back, okay? Because, first off, if you haven't seen Battle Beyond the Stars, you need to see Battle Beyond the Stars, okay? It is fun. Next, I'm going to spoil the hell out of it here. So. Okay. So, instead of being in Mexico with, or the Old West with a small farming village being attacked by bandits, we're actually out deep space, somewhere beyond the stars, apparently, because that's where the battle happens. And there's a really peaceful farming planet called Akir. And everything's going along nicely on Akir until a tyrannical warlord, Sador, and that's John Saxon, and he and his evil Malmori empire. Did we lose Allan?
I can hear you. I just lost you for a little bit.
Oh, okay. No worries. I'll cut in. This, by the way, Allan, I don't do a lot of editing. I'll cut in a few sound bites from the movie, but I do cut these bits out when we have little technical flops. Okay. So, anyhow, Sador decides that his next target of conquest is going to be Akir. And why Akir? Well, they have exactly one spaceship in orbit around the planet, and that's a little weather satellite. And the guys on the weather satellite, there's two of them, and they're like, go look, some aliens are coming. Hi, aliens, how are you doing? Yeah, that doesn't end well for them, let's put it that way. And Sador actually pulls his big ship, the Hammerhead, right down into the atmosphere and projects his face on the bottom of it. And he's like, okay, in 7 risings of your red giant, I'm going to return, and I am going to basically take whatever I want from your harvest, and I'm going to take whatever I want from your people, because you guys are mine now. And then he leaves, because, he's got other things to do also. So these guys have essentially 7 days to get ready to be conquered by Sador. Well, then Sador starts, he just to prove his point, he starts sniping people from orbit, and he kills a bunch of the Akira. And, you've got the one Akira leader guy who's like, oh, we can't do anything, we've got to give up. But then we have Zed, who was played by Jeff Corey, and Zed was I guess he was the last of the Akira Corsairs. And he's, they were kind of the Battle Beyond the Stars version of Jedi, is how I think of them. Or samurai, Jedi, cowboys, whatever. And he's the one that's like, hey, we can fight back. I've got a ship. And everybody's like, I don't know. But then Shad, Richard Thomas, he's a young guy, and he volunteers to take Nell, which is Zed's ship, out and go and try and find volunteers to essentially stand up to Sator and defend this planet. So Shad Zed sends Shad to the space station of his old friend Dr. Hephaestus, and that's Sam Jaffe, and basically he gets there, he's gone there looking for weapons, and what he finds is that there's really not a lot of weapons on the space station, but there's tons of androids. And there's one person alive on the station other than the head of Hephaestus, and that's Hephaestus's daughter, Nenalia, and basically Dr. Hephaestus is kind of like, I'm going to have you marry my daughter, and then we'll have kids running around the station, and it'll be nice, right? Well, Shad kind of figures that's not what he wants to do, and it's not that he doesn't like Nenalia, it's that he wants to save his planet. And so he convinces Nenalia to help him, and he escapes, and then she decides to follow him because she's been kind of alone on this space station with the exception of her dad and a bunch of androids, and I think she kind of wants to get out there and see the world, as it were. Well,
she's
Shad
goes out. Right?
What?
She's the computer programmer.
Yeah, she's the computer programmer, and she doesn't bring any guns, but she does bring a analyzer so that she can help predict the attack modes that Sator's going to use. So she's got that going for him. And then while Shad's out, he runs into Cowboy, and Cowboy's essentially a space trucker, and he's hauling a load of guns. And apparently a bunch of space pirates are trying to take him over. And one of the things I like is that his ship's under attack, and he's outnumbered 4-1, and he's surely going to die. And yet Space Cowboy is just very nonchalant about the whole thing. He's just very, I guess I'll send an SOS. Okay. Hey, help.
It's because he was on the A-team.
Well, he isn't on the A-team yet, Mary.
Oh, this was before the A-team.
Yes, this was before the A-team. The A-team started in about 83.
Oh, okay.
So this was a couple of years before the A-team.
Okay.
And so George Purpard is Space Cowboy, and he doesn't have Mr. T or any of those guys with him. So he has to depend on Shad to save him. And about that time, Sator shows up at the next planet that he's conquering, and that's Umatil. And Sator says, hey, have you guys decided to give up? And no, they didn't. They atomized his emissary and sent him back in a powdered bag. So Sator's mad, so he turns on his stellar converter. And essentially the stellar converter is the Death Star weapon of this movie. So he shoots the planet and essentially turns it into a little sun. So, yeah, that's not a good thing for the people living on the planet.
It's not good for the universe as a whole.
It's not good for anybody, except it's good for, it's good for Sator, but that's beside the point. So, and this is the thing. Everybody knows that even if you can hold off Sator's forces, he has the stellar converter. So if he gets mad enough, he'll just vaporize your whole planet, and that'll be that. But anyway, Space Cowboy happened to be delivering those guns to the planet Umatil. So all of a sudden, he doesn't have a customer for the guns, but they're already paid for. So he agrees to give the guns to Shad's people on Akir. And he sort of agrees finally, after he's coerced a little bit, into actually helping train the Akirans into how to use the guns. Then Shad goes off and recruits Gelt. That's Robert Vaughan's character.
Who sent you?
I'm on a mission for the people of Akir. I'm hiring mercenaries. I was told that there would be many on Nascosto.
You're a little late. There's nothing left but me. I came back for a rest. There's not a planet in the galaxy where there isn't a bounty on my head.
What makes you so popular?
I settle disputes very quickly. I'm very good at it. And I don't care who I work with. I've collected a lot of enemies along the way.
Kill for pay.
I have no home, no family, no principles. What else would I kill for?
Pleasure?
No. It's strictly business with me.
And essentially he's the same character he was in The Magnificent Seven, except now he lives on essentially looks like a abandoned casino planet, and
all the
he's
words
there
in
with
Hebrew.
Do what?
All the words were in Hebrew.
Yep, that's true. They were in Hebrew, and they were in they had English too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had other languages, and it was designed. I guess it was designed to make it look really, really futuristic and spacey, and I thought it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Geld is a Yiddish word for money as well. So.
Yeah, that's a cute little joke also.
Mm-hmm.
But Gelt decides he's going to join on the condition that he gets a place to hide and a hot meal. And
because he has a bounty on his head.
Don't forget the dial-a-date machine that Chad.
Oh yeah, the dial-a-date machine, and so it's essentially a vending machine for hookers, I guess. Yeah. But just like everything else, though, they had been kind of used up at that point. So
yeah, it was all cobwebbed, and women who were skeletons, basically.
Yeah. Now on his way back to
Dead Day, really what it was.
Yeah.
Poor Shad.
Yeah, poor Shad. But anyway, Shad's on his way back to Akir now, and he runs into Sybil Danning, she's Saint Exman.
What is it? What's happening?
A blank.
A what?
Soft light, no heat. I'm not damaged. I have a transmission.
I am Saint Exman of the Valkyrie. I have counted coup upon you. It was a very enjoyable fight.
Enjoyable fight?
But then all fighting is enjoyable. I have heard of your battle with the Malmori. I wish to join you.
Oh, yes? What are you going to do? Shoot blanks at Sador?
The Valkyrie are great warriors. In our youth, we must leave home and fight in many battles until we have proven ourselves.
Well, you've proven yourself to be a pain in the neck, so why don't you just fly off?
But I wish to fight.
My planet is in danger, and you're playing tag with me. Your ship is like a toy. You have no firepower.
It is one of the fastest in the universe.
Well, the Varda teach us that swift rain is little rain.
But I want to join.
Well, we don't want you. We don't need you, and we won't have you. So go count your coup somewhere else.
You were a little harsh, weren't you?
You saw her. She was playing with me.
Yes, and she won.
Would you like me to short-circuit your audio?
And she's in her little Valkyrie warrior ship, and basically she starts chasing him around and shooting at him and telling him what a great battle it was and how much fun she had. And she's really kind of annoying, Shad, but he can't get rid of her, so she just sort of follows along and becomes part of the party. Now, while all that's going on, Nanelli is captured by Cayman of the Lazuli, and Cayman has a very powerful ship and he's also got kind of a mixed bag crew. So he's got the one guy that looks like he's just wearing leftover clothes from Goodwill, but then he's got the two little Kelvin aliens, and the Kelvins communicate with body heat. And that's kind of a neat little trick for them, and they kind of glow, and yeah, it's fun. Well, anyway,
I thought Kamen captured.
Well, he did capture her.
Yeah, he didn't capture Nell. He captured.
No. I'm sorry. He's captured Nenelia.
Oh, okay.
Nenelia,
Okay.
the love interest for Shad.
And that's the set that Cameron designed.
Okay.
When she's hanging there.
Oh.
And that's the one with all the milk cartons for the floor, right?
Yeah. And
yeah.
And
so that's all the smoke's coming up through the bottom, and that's all milk cartons they're standing on, which is kind of awesome. But and now we've got most of the group is together, but then we meet the Nesters, and they show up, and they're actually in what looks like a real UFO. I mean, it's kind of a flying saucer, but kind of a dome, and it glows.
Yeah.
And there are 5 of them, and the Nesters are all part of one larger consciousness. But this larger consciousness sends bits and pieces of itself out into the universe to explore. And so these 5 bits of Nestor decide that they're going to help out. So all of a sudden, we've got a real little band of warriors that are going to defend Akir. We get back to Akir. The natives, who are very peaceful, are a little bit shy around them at first, but then they all get, they all get comfortable with it.
So
and the first thing that they have to do.
That's the scene.
Go ahead.
That's the scene that Roger directed when they all come into town, and so that's the parade of all the characters. So, the scene.
And that's a fun scene because it's the point where all the characters are together and they start interacting with the Akirans, and this is where we get introduced to the idea, okay, these bad people are going to help defend these good people. And so I guess that makes everybody good people. But so anyway, and the Malmori are coming back, and they don't expect to run into any resistance. So when they do, there's an initial big fight between the Malmori and the forces protecting, Akir, and it's a pretty cool little space battle. And I believe that's the one where Gelt, he manages to dogfight his way up to the Hammerhead ship, because the whole idea is that they're going to destroy all of the Hammerhead ship's fighters, and then the Hammerhead ship will obviously have to open up the stellar converter to destroy the planet, since it doesn't have any fighters, and at that point they can blast into the Hammerhead ship because the shields will be down to fire the stellar converter. So it's not an amazing plan, but it's probably the best plan that they could come up with, because they really are tactically kind of outnumbered. And at this point, the Malmori come back and attack again, and they drop off a bunch of ground troops. So we've got Space Cowboy leading the Akirans as they have their big fight against the Malmori ground forces, and the 2 Kelvins come out and use their heat powers to stop a sonic tank, because, they don't have any ears, so they're not affected by the sonic tank. But, lots of people are dying at this point, including Zed, and the Kelvins also end up dying because they used up all their heat. But at some point, Nestor managed to let one of their spare get captured, and Sator decides he's going to interrogate this being. And Nestor is actually, to interrogate him, they torture him, they cut his arm off, and that actually kills Nestor, or that Nestor unit. And the other 4 Nestors are there, and they're psychically linked. And so Sator has the doctor attach Nestor's arm to him. And at that point, the four nesters take over the arm and try and have Sator slit his own throat. So that's a really fun little bit. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that doesn't work because that would have ended the movie too early. So, Sator ends up having his own arm cut off. And he's really, really ticked off now. And so he goes back to Akir, and he's going to destroy the planet with the stellar converter. And, his ship's been damaged, but he fixes the stellar converter, and he starts to fire it. But Shad, everybody dies, except for Shad's ship. And Shad and Nelia get sucked up into the Hammerhead ship, and they decide to self-destruct Nell. And they self-destruct Nell right when he wants to fire the stellar converter, and boom, the ship is destroyed. So like I said, I pretty much spoiled the hell out of this movie for you. But it is such a fun film. You need to check it out immediately.
Yes.
And
one thing
I will say
that you miss one thing, which is John Sayles substituted the Force in Star Wars for the Varda.
That's right, the Varda. Because throughout the thing...
So she got from Agnes Varda, the great French filmmaker.
Oh, is that where it came from?
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, so instead of the Force, everybody's the Varda. And remember, nobody is truly dead.
I'm really interested in this because, John's not Jewish, but Varda sounds like a Jewish thing too,
Mm-hmm. Actually, it does.
Well, bargain is hell. Like Bert Vargan means go to hell. So,
so, hey, and you know what? It's the Varda. So, and I do think we need to write down the rules of the Varda because they kept talking about them, but I swear they weren't in any good order. So,
no.
But anyway,
direct rip off of Star Wars. It was kind of pathetic. It was difficult to treat that seriously at all.
Well, they needed something, and so that gave them a little something, and it made sense at the time for it too. It helped. It was a good plot device to let them slip in things like use greater force against itself, and, things like that. So, but no, I really like this movie, and again, Shout Factory has released a very, very nice Blu-ray set of it. And if you really want to spend some money, they actually have a set that comes with a doll of Saint Exum, Sybil Danning's character.
Separate blaster.
Yeah, with her little tiny blaster. But it's fun, and I do know I got the Steelbox set from Shout Factory. I did not get the one with the doll and the blaster.
Get the doll.
I'm sorry,
Fiona
I just couldn't quite bring myself to it.
Fiona wouldn't let you get the doll.
No comment. All right, so that's Battle Beyond the Stars, and it's just a fun movie, so check it out.
Did you get to listen to the audio commentary on it?
I listened to the Roger Corman and John Sayles commentary.
Yeah. Okay.
I did not listen to the Gale Ann Hurd one yet.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to checking that.
I thought it was interesting that she went on and married James Cameron.
Well, they were the hot couple during battle because she worked in the front office and she was always having excuses to come down to check out the set.
Ooh.
And she had a really cool sports car, and they went off a lot together.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was the beginning.
I shot second unit on Gail's first movie that she produced after that, which was Smokey Bites the Dust.
Huh.
That Chuck Griffith directed. Oh, and when you were talking about an artist before, I really wanted to give a tribute to Roger, and from Bucket of Blood, when Dick Miller, who's the artist, who's the waiter, cafe, tries to be a sculptor at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your face, and he says, "Come on, be a nose, be a nose." That's kind of like making a B movie, you know.
I love that. And I love that you can reference Bucket of Blood for that also.
I know. One of my favorites.
Oh, that was the definitive Dick Miller movie also.
Yeah.
All right.
It was
so Mary,
when he comes down and he shows his art piece, because he wound up killing the cat who was screeching inside the walls, and he covers the plaster, and he's got the instrument that killed the cat in it too, and he brings it down to the cafe, and people think that this is a new artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it called? And he goes, Dead Cat.
And it was a big hit with the beatnik art scene at the time. So
it's about health food and all that stuff, you know, in the cafe.
The whole thing kind of reminded me of Doctor Who. The old Doctor Who's, you know, from the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
Just because of the, I don't know.
The feel?
Not the feel, but using like the crates and the egg crates and that kind of stuff. I always got that feeling with Doctor Who that they just picked up pieces of stuff and turned it into sci-fi. You know, they'd have the plastic curtains and, you know, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, you got that feeling, Mary, because that's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah. I guess that's why it reminds me of it. And it kind of has that kind of tongue-in-cheek humor to it that Doctor Who had.
As a side note, one of the editing jobs I had was on Trek Nation, and do you know why Gene Roddenberry, or how he invented Beam Me Up?
No.
He said because he couldn't afford to land and take off a goddamn spaceship every week.
That's a good one.
Hey, that's a perfect one.
And we've all been waiting for somebody to actually invent that.
I keep waiting. I'm kind of in the Dr. McCoy camp on I don't want my molecules spread all over the universe, so...
Okay.
I mean, we know how well it worked out for Jeff Goldblum and for Vincent Price, so...
That's true.
But, hey, so I guess that pretty much wraps up Battle. Do we have any feedback, Mary?
Yes, we do. I want to know if anybody's heard about the Viewmaster. There's supposed to be a Viewmaster 3-reel packet of this movie.
A what? For this movie?
Yeah, a Viewmaster 3-reel packet. That would have to be worth some money. If anybody has it.
I was going to say, if anybody's got it, that'd be cool, but I bet you'd find it on eBay, Mary.
Yeah, and I probably don't have the amount of money to afford buying it, but...
Oh, come on. You can sell your house.
Yeah. That would be about it, too. Okay. I am going to start the feedback. About that time?
Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes. Is that okay?
Again, hashtag professional show.
Okay, our first one is from Pete Stima. Okay, and he's the one that suggested that Nick post a picture of the contest apparatus bingo balls on the site. So that's for you. Go to the Facebook page and you will see how we choose the winners of the contest. This next one's from Time Shifters, Christopher Page. He says, I wouldn't have caught it except for the images from 1977's Empire of the Ants. I wouldn't have caught it except for recognizing Joan Collins over there on the edge. Good old Bird-Eye Gordon. We recently discovered his amazing Colossal Man on the show as part of our MST3K Unriffed series. We decided that Mr. Big is a great idea man, but a pretty bad director. Ha ha. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. Mask up and take the shot. That's from Christopher Page. And I like Mr. Big. I'm sorry.
He makes some fun movies.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to say he does tend to have small animals and insects crawling over a lot of pictures of buildings, though.
Yeah, that's fun.
But but that's all right.
It's a good B movie.
Hey.
Okay, next one's from Nicholas Stumpf. Says, hi, Mary, Nick, and Juan. Hope you're all doing well. I've been busy raising a 4-month-old, which is time-consuming, but I still try to find time to enjoy the occasional B-movie. I knew that you were going to do Battle Beyond the Stars, so I took some time last week to sit down and watch it, and boy, is it a fun Roger Corman creation. Star Wars meets the Magnificent Seven. It was fun seeing John Saxon play the evil Sador, and boy, did he do a good job being easy to hate on this one. The movie is definitely cheesy, but it sure is a lot of fun. I think that my favorite characters were the Nestors. They were self-sufficient and didn't need things like money or other selfish things. The downside to being a Nestor, of course, is that they can't tolerate pain, which is unfortunate for them, as it ended up being their undoing. Robert Vaughan was also great in this one as Gelt, the wealthy assassin who had all the money and the goods he could ever ask for but can't spend any of it, as he is wanted all over the galaxy. Food and shelter is what this guy wants, not a lot to ask for. It was also fun seeing George Purpard play Space Cowboy, the fun-loving space trucker who enjoys what he does. The movie definitely was influenced, to put it kindly, by Star Wars. The Stellar Converter shares more than a passing resemblance to the Death Star in the Star Wars movies, and there are more than a few other similarities between the two movies. This movie is definitely one of my favorite Roger Corman films. Even with low-budget special effects, this one still captures my imagination. I hope you guys continue to do well. Juan, if you're on the show today, there are a few movies I'd like to get from you that don't appear on your website. Please shoot me an email if you happen to have the time. And I have sent your email on to Juan so that you guys can talk about that. But be prepared to empty your wallet, knowing Juan, he'll talk you into about 5 other movies you didn't know you wanted. Keep up the awesome work, you guys. Listening to your podcast is always something I look forward to. Take care. Nick Stump from Indianapolis. So thank you, Nick.
Very cool. Thank you, Nick.
Mm-hmm. This next one's from Gary Jennyjohn from Germany. He says, nice to see that you're doing some more classic German films. I watched a nice version of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from YouTube, which was 75 minutes, 12 seconds long. The quality was quite good. I downloaded the original German version, Das Cabinet... I'm not even going to try. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, with German intertitles, since I can read German. Interestingly, it was colorized. The intertitles were green, day scenes sepia, and night scenes blue. Don't know what your copy looked like. Ours were like that, weren't they? Yeah, mine was. The one I...
Yeah, that's how mine was, too,
yeah.
So...
some other excellent old German films available on YouTube. Mabuse der Spieler. That's Mabuse the Gambler by Fritz Lang. This is a full 4-hour version in a single file. The intertitles are in German, but there are English subtitles. Wie ein Stadt sucht einen Mord. I give up again. The English version is A City Seeks a Murderer by Fritz Lang. Very good high-def version in German, but with English subtitles, which are mostly correct translations. The incorrect translations don't really matter much and only irritate someone who understands German. And this was one of Peter Lorre's best roles. Didn't Vaughan want to do a Peter Lorre movie?
Yes, he did. I'm trying to remember which one, but I think it was a film noir.
Okay.
So we'll need to get in touch. We need to have Juan back on the show, actually.
Was it M?
Was it M? M, A City Seeks a Murderer.
That's one of my favorite movies, too. I actually did a version of, when I did my independent movie, it was about a thriller on roller skates, and I used M as the model.
Really?
Yeah, and then I made it myself in Super 8, and I played the stuttering rapist on roller skates and stalking people.
Oh,
I learned a lot from it, as a filmmaker, but it's not releasable. When I showed it to my friends, they thought it was really weird.
Okay, when did you make this? When did you make it?
Between Battle and Mutant.
Oh, okay. Well, work on it. Release it.
No, I actually made it before. I actually made it before Battle. Right, I was making it because it was part of my novel. Then I decided if I were a kid, I would make it in Super 8 with my friends on weekends. So I did that, and I shot a lot in the camera. I edited it in the camera a lot, and then when I was first starting on Battle Beyond the Stars, I would be cutting in 35 during the day and then Super 8 at night.
Wow.
And then I showed it to the editing team on Battle, and they thought I was really weird.
I'd like to see that one.
I could show it to you. I have Vimeo.
Cool.
It's not for public. It's with a password.
Well, if you're sharing it with Mary, I want to see it too. That's all I got to say.
Sounds
and my wife became the woman that I stalked.
Oh. Okay.
She could roller skate too. And it's Venice Boardwalk in 1980, so it's really interesting. It's there as a piece.
Okay, we're going to have to do this movie. Okay, he goes on to say, I highly recommend watching Emma if you've never seen it. Mabuse is perhaps a bit too long. Yeah, I think 4 hours would be a little too long for me. That's from Gary Jennyjohn. So thank you, Gary, very much. And we have now a voicemail from Eric.
Good morning, B-Movie Cast family. This is Eric in Lexington, Kentucky. Eric, the semi-professional archaeologist. Eric, the curator. Good to hear from you guys. I'm very excited to hear that you're doing Battle Beyond the Stars. That's a movie I have a real soft spot for. It was an important part of my growing up. Not exactly because I saw it, but because of how I experienced it. So that came out in 1980. I was 10 years old, and sometime after it came out, it aired on television. And I can't remember why, but for some reason, I was not able to watch it when it aired. I don't know if it was on too late, or something else was on, or something was going on that I wasn't able to watch it, but I wasn't. So, anyway, that was in the era before my family had a VCR anyway, and I think before most families did. So I couldn't just video record it, obviously way before DVRs and things of that nature, so I struggled to figure out what I was going to do about this. And when things aired at that time, they didn't necessarily air 27 times over the next month. So I improvised. I went and found my dad's cassette deck, popped a cassette into it, took it to the TV. And this was back in the day when TVs often only had a single speaker. Maybe they had two if they had a really advanced one, and I doubt we had one that was quite that advanced. But I set the cassette deck next to the speaker and pressed record, and at the time the show started, and recorded it on cassette. And at some point, I went back and listened to my cassette recording of Battle Beyond the Stars. And then here about, a couple months ago or so, Twyla and I finally pulled it up on streaming and watched it. So it's a fun film, and I enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing your take, hearing from the person you have found that was involved in the production. I think that sounds fascinating, and I appreciate you all pulling that together. Been enjoying the recent casts, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I think I'll have to check out. Clearly a classic cinema film.
Yes.
And I just need to brush up on my German expressionism, so we'll give that a go. And the hyperboloids of Dr. Guerin also sounds interesting, and I always enjoy listening to Matt. So thanks, Matt, for coming on and sharing your expertise. Appreciate that. Wanted also to give an update since the Indiana Jones cast. We talked about a number of things on there, one of those being that I do cosplay as Indy, and at the time of the cast, I was working on improving my cosplay, which I feel like I've done substantially. I've learned a lot of things about Indy cosplay since I started that process. One of them is that however obsessed I thought I was about Indy and Indy cosplay, I am nowhere near the most obsessed person out there with Indy cosplay. Trust me.
Wow.
It is truly amazing, the detail that people will go to in doing this. I had no idea, really. And there are people out there who have a whole closet full of Indy cosplay. They not only have cosplay for each movie, they will have cosplay for various scenes in each movie. So it's pretty interesting stuff, and I've enjoyed learning about it. I'm connected on Facebook now with a number of indie groups and cosplay groups, so it's become an interesting thing. I've learned a whole lot more about this whole thing that I knew previously. Also been expanding my indie collection, and I've discovered that however much I thought I have nowhere near as much as some people do. So I have room to grow, let's just put it that way. I have acquired a number of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones comics from Marvel that came out between 1982 and 84. There were 34 issues. I don't have them all yet. I'm working on it, but I have enough that I've started it. It's an interesting series. It's sort of a series of episodes, but they're linked as one adventure, so that's kind of interesting, and I'm enjoying that. I also have a number of the Dark Horse comics now from about 2007. So those are a little better, I guess I would say, a little more advanced take. And I have all but one issue now of the movie tie-in comics, so those are fun. Mostly Marvel. I think Dark Horse may have done Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but anyway. I've also expanded my book library. I now have the novelizations of the first three films. And I'm starting to read Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's interesting because there is stuff in there that's not in the film. Some of it is stuff that we know about that was, it's intimated in the film, it's just expanded on in the book. Some of it is stuff that's not really there, a kind of backstory, which is neat. So I'm enjoying that. It's an interesting experience. And I've discovered two other books that I didn't have. I have The Complete Making of Indiana Jones by J.W. Rinsler, who is an archivist with Lucasfilm, sadly, is currently in the end stages of a battle with cancer. So regretfully, he will not be with us, I think, much longer. But it's a great book, if anybody hasn't read it. But I discovered two other books that get into the details of Indiana Jones. One is called Why Did It Have to Be Snakes? Which is a book that looks at Indiana Jones from a historical and scientific perspective, sort of the truth behind the movies or whatever. And it's written by a couple of people, Lois Gresh and Robert Weinberg, who have written a number of books like this, where they take either a film or an author and write something like that. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I also found an academic text called Excavating Indiana Jones, Essays on the Films and Franchise, which is an academic critique of the films, which I had no idea existed until just last week when I discovered it and ordered it. So I have those two. So I intend to be learning a great deal more, and I will report back as I continue my odyssey into the world of Indiana Jones and the 40th anniversary. I'll be doing my cosplay again at Lexington Comic-Con and at Scarefest here in the next couple of months, and I'm looking forward to that. and probably tweaking it a little bit, having done it once. So we'll see how that goes. And there are pictures on Facebook. I could probably share them with the B-Movie-Cast site if people want to see my cosplay, which, like I say, I feel like was pretty good. Not necessarily absolutely top of the line, but not bad either. Anyway, great talking to everyone. Have a good one, and we'll check in again soon. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. I saw some of your Facebook posts in your indie costume, Eric, and it looked very good. So I think you're doing wonderfully in your cosplay. This next one is from Stephen Turk. He says, "Hi, Mary, Nick, and guest host. The contest answer is Empire of the Ants, 1977. I love that film. As usual, I'm enjoying the show. I'm looking forward to seeing Vaughan at the Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Convention, though my wallet is not usually happy to see Vaughan. Kathy Garber has already agreed to let me interview her there. I'm hoping to get more interviews there, especially Patrick Wayne and Lou Gossett Jr. Wish me luck." Good luck, Steve. He says, "Best, Steve Turek. By the way, Mary, Nick is right." No, Nick is never right, Steve. If you were to do an episode with us, all you have to do is talk about the movie. We will handle everything else. Also, I know I just said Nick is right. Please do not let that go to his head.
Trust me, she won't.
I won't. Okay. This next one is from Paul Ruby. It says, the new contest is Empire of the Ants, 1977. It says, "Thank you, Mary, for the new DVD, Bad Meat." And I wrote back and I said, "I'm really sorry." It was the luck of the draw that you got that movie, and maybe the next one won't be so gruesome that you win, hopefully. This next one's from Dax Bradley. Says, "Hello, B-Movie Clubhouse. Greetings to Nick, Juan, distinguished guests. Hi, Mary." Hi, Dax. "I hope everyone is healthy, safe, and doing well. Things are good in eastern North Carolina. Before I forget, the contest pick is from 1977, Empire of the Ants. Please, for the love of John Agar, please, if I win, do not send me a DVD like Cannibal Ferox. I don't want to sound like an Indian giver." Yeah, I'm okay. I won't send out too many more of those. Those are all from Daryl from Scream Magazine. So blame him on the gore movies I've been sending out lately. He says, "Can I say any more? Is someone going to be offended? I hope not, but I digress. Anything that scores more than 80 on Joe Bogbriggs' vomit meter won't work in my home. I couldn't even finish watching Daredevil when it went full on Walking Dead with the gore." Okay. I'm sorry. All kidding aside, I'm happy to receive anything from my favorite podcast. You guys are amazing. I've enjoyed your content for years and am thankful for the joy you share for these often overlooked, underappreciated cinematic gems. Keep up the great work. I'm looking forward to the Hyperboloid of Engineer Garen. I never heard of that, so it should be interesting. Hopefully it will feature at least a dozen references to German expressionism. All the best, Dax Bradley in North Carolina. He likes torturing you, too.
What can I say?
Just have to
All right, Mary, you got any more?
Yes. One more from Marlo Brown. Says, "Hi, Mary, Nick, and the gang. I believe the photo is from the underrated Empire of the Ants 1977, yet another Burt I. Gordon monster movie. I should make a point of seeing it again to see how the practical effects hold up." He goes on to say, "I want a spork, I want a spork, I want a spork." I'm sorry, Marlo. I look forward to receiving my personalized spork. Is it vibranium or adamantium, or maybe titanium? I'll just have to wait and see. Thank you, Nick.
I'll go ahead and tell you it's made out of unobtainium. And I also included, by the way, a movie from my collection.
Aww.
Because nobody should just get a spork.
Even if it's signed by you?
Even if it's signed by me.
Oh, that was sweet. He says, Mary, I'm sure you'll enjoy Battle Creek Brawl. It's a really fun movie, and it could have and should have catapulted Jackie Chan to fame in the early 80s instead of in the mid-90s with Rumble in the Bronx. I discovered Battle Creek Brawl while reading a book about Filipino balisong knives by Jeff Imada. He'd coached one of the bad guys in the film on how to flip a butterfly knife correctly. If you want to see a stuntman and stunt coordinator Jeff Imada close up, watch the original Point Break. Jeff's the guy that Patrick Swayze sprays with gasoline in the chase sequence after the bank robbery. I mostly learned how to use a balisong knife and nunchaku. I always thought it was nunchucks.
That's the American way of saying it.
Oh, okay. And nunchaku, two heavy sticks connected with a short piece of cord or chain, the way most people of my generation did in Boy Scouts. Nunchaku and balisongs are usually more dangerous to the user than to anyone else. I remember an incident at summer camp when a guy was trying to go faster and faster with his homemade nunchaku. At one point, he accidentally drove the butt of one stick into his lower abdomen, just above the groin. The other stick swung around at blinding speed and smashed upward into his groin. I swear he levitated a few inches off the ground a moment before collapsing into a fetal position, while all of us laughed hysterically until we realized he wasn't getting up. Fortunately, he wasn't seriously hurt. I decided I didn't want to be a master of the nunchaku after thinking about how lucky he had been. Anyway, the more I learned, the more I came to appreciate the work of people like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Mark Dacascos, and many, many others. I imagine all of them had to work in pain on many occasions and had to suffer under a system that didn't value martial arts movies until the likes of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan brought the martial arts to the attention of Western audiences. By the way, I recently watched One Night in Bangkok, starring Mark Dacascos. It's Dacascos. It's a remake of...
Please stop saying Dacascos, Mary.
I'm sorry. It's a remake of the Tom Cruise film Collateral. Mark manages to be much more sympathetic than the man on a mission Tom Cruise was. I like the different approach, and say his name again?
Mark Dacascos
was very good in the film, as was the young woman driving the taxi. It's available from Redbox and probably is on at least one of the streaming services. Thank you for another great episode. I wish I'd done an audio reply so I could thank you all in Russian. All my best, Marlo from the haunted borderlands of South Texas.
All right. Well, thanks, Marlo.
Yes.
And by the way, I really do want to extend a big thanks to Allan for coming on the show.
Definitely.
And for hanging with us for the length of the show.
Well, it's delightful to talk with you. I really had a good time. Thank you.
It has been so much fun. And wow.
I love your stories. You're coming on again, whether you like it or not.
I would like to. Thank you.
I will fly out to California and force you.
Hey. Well, thank you very much again, Allan and Mary.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, gang.
Thank you. Bye.
Adios, Mafia.
Well, they've gone.
For good, John?
No, just for now. It wasn't the right time for us to meet. But there'll be other nights, other stars for us to watch. They'll be back.
The ghosts are moving tonight, restless, hungry.
All right, fellas, here's your story.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
Wait, Captain. I have found evidence of intelligent beings on this planet.
Look to the skies, it's the B-Movie Cookbook. Menus inspired by 15 of your favorite B-movies from the 1950s, with teenage werewolves, blobs, and enough cheese for everyone.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
But until then, we've got Ed Wood and Vincent Price.
There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
So impress your friends with dinner and a movie with the B-Movie Cookbook. We've got you covered. Get your copy today at bmoviecookbook.com. That's bmoviecookbook.com.
Let me see that book. I am interested to see what sways your mind so heavily.
Sure thing, just visit bmoviecookbook.com.
Anybody around here want some coffee?
Transmission.
The good guys always win, even in the 80s.